afternoon, and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzynski and Dan Lucero here with you up until 6 o'clock today with so much to get to. We're talking Super Bowl. We're talking college hoops. We're cross-talking what is wrong with you. Oh, we've got so much to get to on today's show, and we are so delighted that you are here to be a part of it with us. Whether you're listening on the Sports Voice of Kansas, tuning in via our website, 580wibw.com, or checking us out on YouTube, which you can do by finding our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Go subscribe, by the way, if you haven't yet. Best way to see all of our live show streams, post-game recap shows, Chiefs instant recaps, and so much more. That, again, is at our YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. And again, appreciate you guys, however you are tuning into the show today. We'll get to the Kansas City Chiefs here in just a moment. Interesting piece today from Sam McDowell over at the Kansas City Star about the Chiefs rookies and the impact they have made this year, really in general, but then going into the Super Bowl. You look back at the game against the Bengals. We talked about them so much on Monday. They came up with Matt Verderame when we talked to him. You and I, Dan, were just talking about the rookies. So just some thoughts on that rookie class, the impact they've been having, and what they are still going to be asked to do coming up against the Eagles, their biggest test yet, coming up in just, what would it be, 10 days? Be 10 days from the Super Bowl right now? Yeah, it's the second. Game's played on the 12th. How about that? Already 10 days from Super Bowl 57. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Also this hour, we'll play either or over under. And Rick Peterson from TopSports.News is going to swing by for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. Later on today, we've got a really full guest list for you. Fulton will stop by top of the 4 o'clock hour for some crosstalk. We'll talk to CJ Moore as well from The Athletic for the Big 12 basketball breakdown, brought to you by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. We will talk all about the Sunflower Showdown from Tuesday night. I'll have to ask him if he has mentally gotten over the insanely obnoxious fan who was sitting in front of us the entire game.
You mean the one that blocked you on Twitter because he found you saying unflattering things about him?
Yeah.
Somehow.
I got to be completely honest with you. I have no idea how this guy was able to find out I was talking about him, but he did, and he blocked me on Twitter. And to be honest, man, like, I don't care.
It's not a big loss. His tweets are trash. I checked.
Yeah, like being loud at a college basketball game, being loud at Allen Fieldhouse, totally acceptable. Standing, fine. Being the most obnoxious person in the entire section, maybe not the best.
It's a fine line, but it ain't that fine.
No, it actually, there's a lot of leeway.
Yes, you are encouraged to stand up and be loud and yell and scream and chant and do all of those things. But if you stand out in that crowd as being particularly obnoxious, there are very obvious and clear lines that you are crossing.
So we'll have to get CJ's take on that. And, of course, everything going on around the Big 12 and with KU and K-State. Plus, 5 o'clock hour, Mitch Holthus is going to join us after a couple weeks off due to, well, actually, we talked to him last week, not at our normal time, but back at our usual time, 5:35 today. Mitch Holthus joins us, the voice of the Chiefs, brought to you by Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got our What Is Wrong With You for today. And as I mentioned, we'll play some either or over under this hour. You are welcome to be a part of the show no matter what we're talking about over the course of the day on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And of course, you can hit us up in the comment section on YouTube as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is our YouTube channel. And you just got to see me move my hair out of the way.
Yeah, are you filming a shampoo commercial? Like, what's going on in there?
I have a lot of hair. You might not have noticed. I have a lot of hair, and when it is dry, so the wintertime, it's a mess. It is all over. It's falling down. It's frizzing out. It's a lot, and I'm very you I'm sure have noticed this and have heard me say it. I'm very neurotic, and
no,
like
you,
I can feel hair like between my eyebrow. I'm gonna go put some water on it during the commercial break because it's. This is the person who like will stop at Kohl's in the middle of the day to get a belt when whoops, forgot to put one on.
But no, that's totally reasonable though. Like that's reasonable behavior to me. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm very particular, not about many things, but the things I am particular about, very, very particular. All right, let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's move on from my general weirdness. Let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl 57. You know the drill at this point. There was a piece today, a column over by Sam McDowell of the Kansas City Star at the Star's website, which, of course, you can go find, kansascity.com. or if you're a subscriber to the Kansas City Star. And it's about the rookie class for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the headline of the column is how the Chiefs turned their rookies from liabilities into assets for the Super Bowl run. And it's a really nice breakdown about what the Chiefs rookies have been through and the fact that the rookies have really grown up. In fact, the column even starts with a little anecdote about Brian Cook, the second-round safety out of Cincinnati, who was asked about the rookies. And before the person in the beat court even got to finish their question, he said, "We're not rookies anymore." And that's true. You've played this many games, you're not a rookie at this point. The Chiefs are what? Now going into game 20 of the season?
Yeah.
17 regular season games, now the third playoff game. Yeah, you're really not a rookie at that point. You're essentially into your sophomore year. And as McDowell writes, that's kind of been emphasized in the locker room recently among the younger guys, among the coaches, that, hey, you guys aren't the new kids on the block anymore. You have just as much ownership in this team as anyone else, and as much ownership in our success as anybody else. And he writes about short-term pains for the sake of getting long-term gains. And that's actually, Dan, where I wanted to start with this, and the thing that jumped out to me the most about this column. And it's well done. It's not too long if you want to go check it out again. But he writes, it's been a bumpy ride for the class to a Glendale, Arizona destination that awaits in Super Bowl 57 against the Eagles. But the Chiefs roster didn't allow for patience. It didn't allow for alternative options, And that's what prompted a relatively smooth landing last Sunday against the Cincinnati Bengals. I would make an argument, though, and, there were ups and downs for everyone. Brian Cook, for an example, too many penalties this year. That was an issue for Brian Cook. Too many penalties, specifically on special teams. Pacheco, fumbling, bit of a concern. Joshua Williams looked great at the start, then kind of faded away, but now is back to contributing again. I would make the argument that relative to most rookies and relative to most rookie classes, this has actually been a pretty smooth year for Kansas City. I mean, look at the big picture negatives versus the big picture positives. The two things that really stand out as the biggest negatives: one, Trent McDuffie missed a bunch of time because he got hurt. That's not his fault. He just got hurt.
Was it 6 weeks or?
I think it was 6. Yeah. On that cursed turf in Arizona, which is where this game is going to be next Sunday. And then they never really, still to this point, really have not figured out what to do with Sky Moore. Like, in college, he was never a jet sweep guy. He had exactly one rush in each of his 3 seasons at Western Michigan. One as a freshman, one as a sophomore, one as a junior. He's not a jet sweep guy, but that's kind of been his role, the orbit guy, the jet guy for this Chiefs offense. He's much more of a possession slot receiver than he is that. So his role in the offense never quite has gotten fleshed out. Special teams, great on Sunday against the Bengals, but before that, shaky to say the least, to the point where he asked Dave Toub and Andy Reid, hey, please don't put me on punt returns anymore. But other than that, I mean, has there really been anything that is a glaring negative? I guess you could argue the fumbles with Pacheco, but his good has been way better than his bad. I mean, he's your starting running back. It took, 4 weeks of the season? Maybe a little bit longer than that, but it was the first half of the season still, even before Edwards-Helaire went down with injuries, when we could tell, yeah, he's number one. He is running back number one, or at the very least, he's going to split carries. Then Edwards-Helaire obviously got hurt, and Pacheco was thrown headfirst into that starting job. But he has been a major positive, especially as a 7th-round rookie. Speaking of 7th-rounders, Jalen Watson, legitimate NFL starting cornerback. In a year where there have been some great corners that are rookies, Tariq Woolen of the Seahawks, Sauce Gardner of the Jets, Jalen Watson, maybe not as good as those guys, but he's been up there. He has been very steady, very solid for the most part ever since he was pushed into service early on in the season. Brian Cook, reserve for the defense, but he's a core special teamer. He is out there for everything on special teams. That's an important piece to have, and he's been pretty good at it, again, except for the penalties. Karlaftis is a guy. Slow start to the season in terms of sacks, but he was generating pressures. Then the sacks started to come as the year moved on. Overall, I think very solid year for Karlaftis. And since he's been healthy, Trent McDuffie's he's a cornerback number 1, or at least a good cornerback number 2. L'Jarius Sneed obviously takes that number 1 mantle most of the time. But I would argue, Dan, that with the data we have now, with 19 games of data that we have now for this rookie class, I wouldn't even call it a bumpy road to get here for this Chiefs rookie class. I would say it's the occasional understandable rookie miscue But overall, I think this class has been phenomenal. We haven't even talked about a handful of them. Leo Chanel's out there. He doesn't do a ton, but he's out there, and he plays on special teams too. Kennard, who we were high on going into the year, hasn't even played all season. This rookie class, I think, has done more than you could have asked for, honestly, if you're the Chiefs, in a situation where, because of depth, because of moving things around mid-season in the secondary, they had to step up in big roles.
And the neat thing about it, for pretty much all of the guys we've mentioned, the guys who have been critical pieces for the Chiefs this year, is that it has been a consistently upward trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the improvement and you can see the increased production or productivity, however you want to phrase it, on a week in, week out basis. Like Karlaftis is a perfect example of that. You draft a guy in the back half of the first round. You don't necessarily expect them to win Defensive Rookie of the Year or have double-digit sacks, but early on, the numbers weren't there. But you could still see that he was generating pressure. He was learning, in effect, how to use the tools he had developed as a college player to be a first-team All-Big Ten player and sharpen and polish those tools and that skill set to make it work against NFL left tackles and NFL tight ends who might happen to be blocking him, or NFL running backs in pass protection. And as it goes, he figured it out. And the production numbers started to show up in the sack category. The trajectory was, if not a straight line, a pretty consistent upward trajectory for George Karlaftis. It's the same for Jalen Watson. His maybe the biggest surprise. Like, I know you don't expect the 7th round running back to be your starter by the end of the year, and maybe Isaiah Pacheco is the biggest surprise this year for the Chiefs, but I'd still argue it's Jalen Watson, a guy who produced such a level that Rashad Fenton, their most experienced cornerback ending the season, was expendable.
Yeah.
By the time the trade deadline rolled around, and they traded him away because they trusted these rookies so much. His trajectory has been steadily upward. He obviously had the spectacular flash in week 2 with the 99-yard pick 6, but he has gotten better and better as the season has gone on. Brian Cook has gotten better in that third safety role. They played a lot of 3 safety snaps against the Bengals on Sunday. When you go back and you look at the number of snaps for the defense, there were a lot of snaps for Brian Cook in that game. Some of that was Willie Gay getting hurt, but he got hurt in the second half. Even in the first half, you saw a lot of those 3 safety looks. We know how much Steve Spagnuolo loves those. We know
adores them.
We know how much you could get in trouble when that third safety was as athletic as Daniel Sorensen, or not athletic, as the case might be in Dirty Dan's case. Having more athleticism in Brian Cook out there has made those 3 safety looks less prone to being beaten by the big play. So his trajectory has been steady upward. Trent McDuffie, once he got playing, his trajectory has been steady upward. The Chiefs don't get to where they are right now, preparing to play in the Super Bowl for a 3rd time in 4 years, if not for that. The idea behind this season, especially with the defensive guys, Pacheco and Moore, I'll set them aside for a second, but especially when it comes to those defensive guys, they were going to be leaned on to play, but how much they could contribute right away as rookies was going to be the difference between this being a transitional year for the Chiefs and another winning year for the Chiefs. And they've made it work because that trajectory has been steady upward throughout the season. And they've turned it into not a retooling year, just hey, we have these guys and they contribute. They make the defense better. That was the biggest thing. Learning on the job, that's always going to be part of any rookie experience.
Yeah.
But it's not just been that they've learned on the job. It's that they've contributed. It's that they've made plays. It's that they've taken a position that looked like a question mark going into the year, cornerback, and turned it into, I'd argue, something of a strength going into the Super Bowl.
Absolutely a strength. That is certainly a strength of the defense. I think to go back to your first point about Jalen Watson specifically being the biggest, most pleasant surprise for this team, I would say it's him over Pacheco for one reason, because we are at a point in NFL and just football discourse where we hear all the time, you can get a running back whenever. You can get an undrafted running back who can play for you and get real snaps. You can get a running back any point in the draft and they can be useful for you. And, well, Pacheco kind of lived up to that. That 7th round out of Rutgers, not very heralded, but was a very solid collegiate player. He steps in. He's a big role player. No one was talking about Jalen Watson during the draft. It was like, yeah, they drafted a cornerback, whatever. Like that was nothing. There was no talk about that. And then the other part of it is, too, how many times do we hear Jalen Watson's name during training camp?
Hardly at all.
Hardly at all. Isaiah Pacheco, we heard about him every single day for the first 3 weeks of training camp. And that's not to say that's not to take away from the year Pacheco has had, because for a rookie running back who was not the featured back at the start of the year, at the very least, had a very solid year, very steady year.
But if I may tip my cap for a moment to a gentleman we're going to speak to later on in this program, Mitch Holthus. He was the one that was keyed into the young guys in the secondary. He was the one, as we talked to him throughout training camp, pointing out to us, hey, Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson are taking first team snaps every now and again. Like it's not every day, but they have worked their way into consideration. They have worked their way into opportunity. And when the opportunity arose for those guys, they have made big plays. Jalen Watson has made some of the biggest defensive plays of the season for this Chiefs team. Joshua Williams had an interception in the end zone against San Francisco that was a critical play. He had an interception in the AFC Championship game. So it hasn't been perfect. Look, in this modern NFL, there are very few cornerbacks. Only the elite of the elite either don't get picked on or don't give up catches. Like, it's only a handful of guys out there who you can honestly say, oh, they've got a seatbelt on their guy at all times. They never get beat. But to be a cornerback who doesn't give up frequently the big play, who's where they're supposed to be, who tackles well, like, those are the starting cornerbacks in the league. And the Chiefs might have come up with at least two and a possible in the same draft, which leads to what our texter from the 913 points out on the Big O Tires text line. Moment of silence for Rashad Fenton watching the Super Bowl from his couch. That's tough.
Yeah, that's dang, man. Dang. Well, and I will say, to your credit, too, you thought this team would be, I had more trepidation about so many young guys in the secondary, more so, I think, than you did. And hey, they have balled out and they have been tremendous, but that then brings us to Super Bowl 57, which will be their most difficult matchup in terms of stage. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. Most of these guys did not play in game. I guarantee you, Isaiah Pacheco has never played in a game this big in his whole life. Rutgers wasn't playing in many of these.
No. Did Rutgers make a bowl in Pacheco's career? Maybe one?
Oh, I don't know if they did. They might not have. Like, I got nothing but love for Washington State football, where my wife got her bachelor's degree. They weren't playing Super Bowls at Martin Stadium, folks, and there are 30,000 seats. Like that, those games aren't happening. This is big. This is different. And I think that can be both overestimated, but also underestimated, that it isn't just any other game, but you also can't get so wrapped up in everything that is going on around it. So there is an element that has to be taken care of, but also this is a difficult matchup because of the team you are playing. You've got to cover well, and Snead, assuming he is able to go, and it was good he was able to get out on the practice field a little bit today. Watson, Joshua Williams is going to be out there. McDuffie is obviously going to be out there for almost every single snap. It is a tough ask to cover Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown for in the neighborhood of 70 snaps in a game. That is going to be an extremely difficult ask for that secondary, and throw the safeties in there as well.
That's as good a duo of wide receivers as the Chiefs have faced all year.
Yep.
Only I would say the Bengals are better with their 1 and their 2, Chase and Higgins.
Yeah.
I mean, you look back at the Chiefs schedule, and they play Buffalo. Diggs is awesome. Gabe Davis, though, I don't think is of the same stature as a wide receiver 2
I took a step back this year.
Devontae Smith is. So you've got the speed and the route running ability of Devontae Smith. You have the physicality and the strength of A.J. Brown. So they're very different kinds of wide receivers. It is a very difficult matchup. The question is going to be, and with 2 weeks to get right, it may look different than it has down the stretch, but can Jalen Hurts get them the ball in situations where they have a chance to make an explosive play? Is he going to be able to make those throws in the way that he was making those throws earlier in the season before the injury?
The other thing, too, that this secondary and really the whole defense, I mean, there's a lot of rookies on the defensive side of the ball. The only rookies who weren't defensive picks this year were Pacheco, Darian Kennard, and then Sky Moore. So there's a lot of young guys on that side of the ball. You have got to be ready to be physical. And you normally think of that as up front and in the trenches against their offensive line. But it's not just that, because you've seen A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown kind of developed a reputation as just a slot guy because in college he played next to DK Metcalf, who is just absurd.
Voltron.
And he mostly played out of the slot in Tennessee because that's where they needed him the most. And it worked really well. He just ran glance routes and slants and then took it for yak all the time. You ever seen A.J. Brown? Just a picture of him. He is like a bodybuilder. He is jacked to hell. He is tough. He's not just a guy you can kind of shove and he's going to get knocked off his route and he's going to give up if you're physical with him at the top of a route. No, he is going to shove back. He is going to fight back. Devontae Smith is not huge, so it's a little bit of a different equation with him. But then Dallas Goedert is a really good player. You bring up the point about Cincinnati. Cincinnati's receivers, 1, 2, 3, certainly the best because number 3 wide receiver for Philly is Zach Pascal, who's not great. He's fine. He's a guy. But their third best receiver is Dallas Goedert, who is a legit dude at tight end. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be able to be physical on the back end. I'm not saying that I'm worried about that, but it's something you have to keep in mind.
Here's the other thing, too. His presence may lead the Chiefs to play a lot more 3 safety looks.
That's true.
I think they like to play 3 safeties more against teams with good receiving tight ends. That's kind of been the tendency for the Chiefs and Spagnuolo. And I'm saying that anecdotally. There might be, there might be some difference in games if you really go dig through the snap count data. But that's a matchup for Brian Cook. He's going to have to be a factor against Dallas Goedert and some multi-tight end sets. He's going to have to get downhill. He's going to have to be a factor in the tackling game. So it's going to be a big game for all of those rookies. But the bottom line for them is, if not for their swift learning curve, the Chiefs are not playing 2 Sundays from today.
No, that is absolutely the case. And that's a credit to the coaching staff. That's a credit to the front office, scouts and Veach included, to find these guys. This is by far the best draft the Chiefs have had in, I couldn't even tell you how. I mean, 2017 doesn't really count because you took Mahomes, and obviously that's the most important draft in franchise history. But, I mean, when you go back and just look year by year, and Veach just had some hits, like he's had some misses. That happens in every draft, but this class has been absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to go in and look. I'm going to see if I can find from Pro Football Focus weeks in which the Chiefs have played against legitimately really good tight ends and see if I can find their formations in the defensive backfield. We'll follow up on that because that could truly dictate what kind of personnel they can have out there. Do they have to go smaller with the linebacker group? What do the pass rush sets look like? We'll follow up on that either tomorrow or coming up early next week. Right now, though, we've got to take our first break on the show. We'll come back after this timeout, play either or over under on 580 Sports Talk. Time for either or over under here on 580 Sports Talk. Okay, this came up during the break. So where did this question come from? Was this posed to you on the text line?
Yes, this comes from the Big O Tires text line.
Okay.
From a texter to 785. I'm only trying to help, I'm sure. Passing this message along during the end of that segment. Somebody tell Dan that there's a G in strength.
So the word
message received, first of all.
STRENGTH. I'm sorry, spelling over the radio does not sound good, I know, but it's STRENGTH. How would you say that word?
Strength.
See, I would say strength. Like the ENG makes an eng sound. Strength.
According to Merriam-Webster, we're both right. I'm going to play you the pronunciations. They got audio pronunciations. We go look up a word in the dictionary online.
Okay.
And the audio pronunciation. So here's your way.
Strength.
And here's my way.
Strength.
They're both there.
Why do they have a voice from Windows 98 doing that sound?
Hey, listen, probably because those come from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, like CD-ROM that you probably used to get every time you bought a desktop PC in 1997.
Hell yeah. What was the name of that? Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. What was the name of the Windows like online Encarta?
Yes, Microsoft Encarta. Yes.
Encarta. Wow.
That takes me back.
My dad says, instead of height, he says height. Like he puts an extra H at the end of it. And I've heard strength he might say it that way too. I don't know why he says it that way, and I didn't pick up on that, but strength, height.
Now, I don't know if that's a regionalized thing that I've just kind of picked up along the way. I could not tell you why I pronounce that word that way. That is just the natural way. If you ask me to say the word, that's how I'm going to say strength. I don't know why that's natural to me. Like I don't know. Is that a regional dialect? Is that a Colorado thing? I don't know.
Here's another one. Do you pronounce the L in the word FOLKS?
Folks, I guess I do.
Yeah. The only people, I'm not trying to put anyone down. You're not from this part of the country, although you lived there for a little bit. The only people I've ever heard in my whole life who pronounce it folks come from the greater Wichita area. I had never in my life met anyone from Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, people I went to school with from Northeast Kansas, from Missouri, from Colorado. No one had ever said folks. Then I met people from Wichita who were like, yeah, why wouldn't you pronounce the L? Because it's English. Like, there's all sorts of silent letters.
Merriam-Webster's only got one pronunciation for that.
Folk.
Bang!
So
take that, Rose Hill.
Maybe I'm wrong there. I
Derby.
remember one day in the pre-pandemic 4-hour 580 Sports Talk era in which I revealed that I pronounced the beverage that comes from the udders of a cow in a certain way that infuriated Jake, and we had a whole segment-long debate about the way I say the word milk.
My wife and I have this discussion weekly, maybe, if not every other week. She says milk. I say milk. And then she makes fun of me. She's like, you milk? She makes fun of the way I say it, like it's all proper and whatnot. I'm just pronouncing the I.
I stand with Abby on this one.
How does your wife say it?
I don't know. I'll ask her.
Yeah, ask how she pronounces it.
I'll ask my wife. I'll ask her, can you say milk for me, please? And we'll see. I think actually we had that discussion. I think she does pronounce the I. So in one corner, Brendan and Abby, but not your Abby. And in the other corner, me and Abby, but not my Abby.
Oh, my God.
As if that could be any more confusing.
I don't know if there are any other regional things. I know there are things I say that my wife tells me. She goes, oh, yeah, you can tell you're from Chicago, Great Lakes, Upper Midwest. I'm like, how? I don't have an accent. I don't have a dialect. I just have American English. No,
right.
That is not true. My nasal apparently gives it away. Do you have an either or over under today?
Yeah. If one of these receivers and only one could be 100% for Super Bowl 57, Kadarius Toney or Juju Smith-Schuster. Both of them did not practice today. Andy Reid notably sounded encouraging regarding Toney, saying that he's close. Not so much encouragement around McCole Hardman. Doesn't sound like he's going to be able to go. Certainly wouldn't be able to go if they were going to play tomorrow. But right now, it kind of appears that Hardman's a no. Tony's a more of a maybe than Juju at this stage. But if you could only get one of Tony or Juju, 100% for Super Bowl 57.
I think I would lean with Juju. There's more dynamic athleticism with Tony, but I feel like if you're building a game plan and you're sequencing plays together, you're writing your script to start a game. You're opening 15 non-third down plays. I feel like you have more trust in the ball going to Juju Smith-Schuster in your basic offensive stuff than you do to Kadarius Toney. Not saying that Toney can't run routes, that he can't give you a 12-yard dig or something. It's not that, but if you had to pick which of these receivers would you rather have run a corner route on 3rd and 8, I'd rather take Juju Smith-Schuster. I also like Juju's blocking better. I think his physicality helps. Again, not that Toney doesn't have some of this, but I think if you're just talking overall body of work, I'd rather have what Juju brings to the table than I think what Toney brings to the table, because there's a degree still that we don't know what the full complement of things Toney brings to the table is, right? Like,
we haven't gotten to see it, unfortunately.
There's not been a lot of consistency.
I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing what it looks like next season, but we haven't really gotten to see it this year, and that's kind of why I'd lean toward Juju as well. But there is, I think, a higher level of variance. Like, Toney could hit you a home run in a way that I'm not sure Juju's more likely to get you like 8 catches and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Toney's more likely to spring one for 70, 80 yards and flip the field, flip a game out of nowhere. So I guess it depends on how you think this game is going to be won.
Man, that is a good question, because I think they do bring two different things to the table. I just feel like I have more trust in Juju. Also, this isn't entirely fair, admittedly. Toney gets hurt all the time. Like, Juju's been pretty consistent for the most part this year when he wasn't concussed. Toney gets hurt all the time.
Yeah.
I think I'd lean with Juju. We've got to take a break. Rick Peterson joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. Topeka and around Shawnee County better than absolutely anybody else. And he joins us every Thursday here on 580 Sports Talk for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. Go find all of Pistol's tremendous work over at topsports.news. And, of course, you can find him on Twitter as well at Peterson_Rick. Pistol, it's been a while since we've gotten to talk to you. How are you, my friend?
Been doing good, but it's busy. But, it's good to get the back-to-back tournament weeks out of the way.
It was a pretty fun, pretty eventful couple of weeks on the tournament front. And I want to ask you this, just big picture basketball-wise, after the Glacier's Edge tournament, which had a great field, and Seaman won this past weekend. The week before that, it was the Topeka Invitational tournament with a great field. Highland Park won. Does the city of Topeka just own Class 5A? Is the best boys team and the best girls team in the state in that class right here in the city?
Well, of course, that remains to be seen in about 6 weeks. But right now, yeah, I have to say they're right up there. Seaman had a tough loss, and they bounced right back to it. And I thought really 2 games would test Highland Park, and obviously the TIT final against Lawrence, and then the game against Eudora, and they handled both of those with relative ease. Still haven't had a single digit game. So yeah, they're rolling, and I think Topeka High girls are rolling, and another team that won a tournament that's kind of coming out of nowhere, so to speak, is the Hayden girls.
We'll talk a little bit more about girls hoops here in just a moment. I did want to follow up, though, Pistol, with the Highland Park boys. You've heard this. I've heard this. We know the coaches, the players, they have heard this. With the way that the leagues have moved around and now different competition, different road trips, that has been really the dominant story in prep sports over the course of the year. But we know, we've heard people talk about, well, Highland Park's not playing anybody in the KCAL or now the Meadowlark Conference. They're playing all these Kansas City schools that are, many of whom have fallen on some hard times athletically. I think, Pistol, from what we have seen, from what you have seen, I think we've got more than enough proof at this point to say Highland Park is for real. It doesn't really matter who they're playing.
Yeah, of course. And here's the thing. And yeah, I mean, Mike gets really irritated about that, and him and I have talked about it. But, hey, Atchison is the number 1 ranked team in 4A. That's in that league. So, yes, they have had some easy games, and I'm going to one that'll probably be an easy game tonight. But, they've played teams like Atchison. They've played teams like Lawrence. They've played teams, out of the proud Wichita City League. So, yeah, there's been some easy ones. But I think Mike really worries more about his team and what they need to do and what they need to do to get ready for a postseason than he does about who he's playing.
We're talking to Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. He joins us every single Thursday here on the show, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. You can find Pistol's work at TopSports.news, and you can find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. Let's get back to the girls basketball here, Pistol, as you are bringing up some teams that are on fire right now. You've got Topeka High, which is cruising, coming off a win at the Firebird Classic in Lawrence a week ago. Hayden wins its tournament as they take down a group of teams down at the Wellsville Top Gun Invitational. Seaman wins the Glacier's Edge. And then you've got Washburn Rural, who finished 3rd at Shawnee Heights, who, by the way, is the reigning champion in the state and has played a very tough schedule, not just in the Centennial League, but outside the league as well. We know that the girls basketball in this town, Pistol, is really darn good, but it feels like right now in the top group of teams in the city, there is a lot of depth and a lot of teams that are going to contend for state tournament berths.
Yeah, it's a crowded top group because, obviously Hayden's playing really well. Highland Park is off to a great start. I think 9-3 now. Seaman's top ranked in the state in 5A. Shawnee Heights has had a very good year. Topeka High coming off the win in the Firebird Classic, and Rural's going to be, they're going to be good. They obviously are still adjusting to playing without Zoe Camfield, but it's a crowded group. And then outside the county and out in the county, and Silver Lake and Rossville are very good.
I want to give some shine to some of the other programs as well, Pistol, who maybe didn't win tournaments over the last couple of weeks, but have been playing well. Shawnee Heights has been ranked for most of the season in the KBCA poll. The Highland Park girls have exploded and are playing really well against their Meadowlark competition, already have far more wins than they had either of the last 2 seasons combined. And the Topeka West girls have more wins this season than they did last year as well, with a very veteran group. So even with how crowded it is at the top, there's a lot of depth for all these teams. And I think this is a good time of year, Pistol, to really kind of reflect on, wow, it's been good for years in the city, but right now it is really strong from top to bottom.
It is. And I think now is the time where coaches start looking and see, okay, where are we going to stack up in the postseason? Or do we have a chance for a home game? Who are we going to draw? We're in February now. So teams are really starting to tightening things up and get ready for postseason, which is about 5 weeks.
We're talking to Rick Peterson from topsports.news. That's where you can go to find all the best coverage of all things prep sports here in Topeka and Shawnee County. It's the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. Pistol, let's look ahead to some of the action coming up this week. We'll start with what is our 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader tomorrow night. The coverage begins at 5:45 right here on 580 WIBW. Doubleheader action in the Centennial League between Washburn Rural and Emporia. A good Emporia boys team against a really good Washburn Rural boys team, and then 2 of the best girls teams in the state in their respective classes, Washburn Rural versus Emporia. Pistol, what do you make of those 2 matchups, both boys and girls, and do you think Rural has a chance to pick up a sweep against some really tough competition from down south?
I think Emporia has a chance to pick up a sweep. I think Rural and Emporia have a chance to pick up a sweep. I think it's just going to be a heck of both games. Alex Hutchins has done a really good job with that Rural team, and they're really hitting their stride. And then Bordewick just expects, and they have proven it time and time again to be in the hunt every single year in both of the sports he coaches, volleyball and basketball.
Going down to Class 5A for some action this weekend, Seaman is taking on DeSoto. We'll start on the girls' side because we have some specifics with the boys' game that we want to get to as well. But that girls' matchup, as Seaman takes on DeSoto, they already faced, if I remember correctly, and I do, earlier in the year, and the Lady Vikes picked up a 47-36 win over a pretty solid DeSoto team. What do you think about the second matchup between those two this year?
Well, I think Seaman's the favorite. DeSoto also was coming off a loss to Piper, which Seaman just played on Tuesday. I think Seaman, it's always tougher to play a team twice around, and I think DeSoto will definitely be ready on their home court. But I like the way this Seaman team's playing. We talk about deep. I think they've got several players that can really step up on any given night and lead Seaman. And that's something good to have.
On the boys' front, Seaman taking on DeSoto. Obviously, that's round 2 of rematches this year from the state championship game a year ago between the now UKC league mates. DeSoto got Seaman earlier in the season up at Viking Gymnasium. We were there for that game. Seaman led for quite a while before DeSoto really poured it on at the end. But now Seaman's got some bigger injury issues to deal with, Pistol. Caden Bonner got hurt earlier this week in a loss against Kansas City Piper. What do you know about how Caden Bonner is doing and how that'll impact this matchup tomorrow?
I do not know. I have not talked to Craig Cox since Tuesday night. And they were, Caden was walking pretty good. It was obviously his left knee was pretty sore. He did run into the bleachers. But they were hopeful at that point. I haven't talked to him, like I said, because I think they needed time to get some things checked out and see how the next couple of days went. But they were cautiously optimistic that he would be okay.
What's some of the other action going on around the hardwood coming up tomorrow night, Pistol, that you'll be keeping an eye on?
Well, I'm going to be out at Shawnee Heights to watch another team that's really playing their best right now, Shawnee Heights boys, and they're taking on Leavenworth, and I like the T-Birds' chance for a sweep out there. Hayden and Manhattan. I mean, that'll be a good game on both the boys and the girls. So there's several good games, and we're getting down to the point where a lot of teams anyway are playing other teams for the second time around, and that's always interesting. West boys played Lansing for the third time the other night. So we're getting down to. I'm standing here watching Groundhog Day. We're getting to Groundhog Day on hoops too.
Also, Pistol, did want to mention, to follow up with the point you made about the T-Birds, the Shawnee Heights boys playing really well. 10-4 now on the year. It felt like going into this season, Ken Darding really was trying to figure out who was going to score for them and how all the pieces were going to fit together. But right now, especially in that starting five and with Q Stovall coming off the bench as well, feels like they've really gotten into a rhythm with that current rotation they're running out there.
Yeah, they're not gonna go up 80 on you or anything. They're not gonna throw 80 at you or anything like that. But with the way they play defense, they don't have to. I mean, they held Baser Linwood the first time to 39 points. They held him, I believe it was 47 the other night, 47 or 48. And Darding, I talked to Coach Darding yesterday, and he just really likes the way they're playing defense. And, if you play good defense, you're always in the game.
Yeah, we do know one thing about teams coached by the great Ken Darding. If you want to be on the floor, you're going to have to play some defense. Last thing I've got for you, Pistol, not necessarily on the basketball front, but just in general for football. It was National Signing Day yesterday, which at the highest levels, the Division I level, it's not quite as big of a deal anymore because they've got the early signing day, but it is still a big deal at the Division II level. Washburn with a busy day, and a couple of local kids also signing their letters of intent yesterday, including one standout from Washburn Rural, Ty Weber, among others.
Yeah, Ty Weber and the good receiver Sabarini, both.
Yep.
And then Mackie James from Highland Park also signed with them. Troy Hyman from over at Silver Lake, Keller Hurla from St. Mary's, and then they also had a bunch of 7 players from Georgia signed with them. So it was a very diverse group. And I was with Coach Schurig for quite a while yesterday, and he, obviously recruiting is always kind of a crapshoot, but he felt really good about this group.
Love to hear that. And he told our Jake LeBon and Fulton Castor yesterday he was feeling pretty good about it as well. So love to hear that for the Ichabods. Always love to hear from Rick Peterson from TopSports.news. Better coverage than anybody else covering all things prep sports and Washburn here in Topeka and around Shawnee County. Find him on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And of course, head to the website, TopSports.news, for all the best coverage of all things prep sports. Pistol, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the trip out to Shawnee Heights coming up tomorrow night, and we will talk to you next Thursday.
Thanks, Brendan.
That is Rick Peterson from TopSports.news and the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around. And again, coming up tomorrow night, we'll be live from the House of Blues at Washburn Rural High School for Washburn Rural versus Emporia. It is our 580 Preps high school basketball game of the week doubleheader. Pregame for game number 1 begins at approximately 5:45. Game 1 tip set for 6 o'clock, and the boys game will follow right after, right here on 580 WIBW. We've got to take a break for the national and local news. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we've got Crosstalk, CJ Moore, and more on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way on this Thursday, February 2nd. Happy Groundhog Day, by the way. Did you see your shadow when you woke up this morning?
No, I did not. It was very dark in my bedroom, which is how I like it.
Are you all the lights off all the time guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No night lights.
My wife she wants it as dark as we can get it. And I mean, our blinds aren't great. So she'll have them closed when she goes to bed. We'll close them. So I'll get in bed and it'll be pitch dark, no light from outside or anything. But then she very kindly will open them or crack them open for when she wakes up, because I wake up better when there's sunlight. I have a much easier time I know a lot of people, oh my God, I hate when there's light when I wake up. It's the worst. No, I need it. Otherwise I will sleep right through the entire morning. So blackout curtains, no thank you. Blinds closed, absolutely not. I am the heaviest sleeper ever. Anyway, that was a total tangent. Welcome to the show. Brendan and Dan here with you. We've got Crosstalk coming up here in just a moment. CJ Moore is going to join us coming up here in just a little bit as well for the Big 12 Breakdown, brought to you by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. We've also got What Is Wrong With You coming up this hour. Would love for you to be a part of the show on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, the YouTube comment section is open as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the YouTube channel live streaming the show. You can also watch the live streams of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton on YouTube. And, oh, what a perfect segue, because Fulton Caster, one of the co-hosts of Mic'd Up, is here with us. Fulton, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, boys. How are we?
Doing well. Did
We're
you
good.
see your shadow this morning?
Maybe I didn't check. I'm not a pitch black guy when I sleep. I like it fairly dark. I need a little bit of light because I sometimes have to walk around at night and I don't like hitting things. So I need just a tiny bit of light to help me see. But I also, much like you, Brendan, I have blinds that face right like where my bed is. So when that sun comes in the morning, I know there's light outside. But I, much like you, enjoy waking up to that light, or
Yeah.
I will also sleep through the entire morning.
See, we have like little, I guess they are night lights to a degree. They turn on automatically when you turn the lights off. They just get plugged into an outlet in the bathroom, just so you can go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and it's not pitch dark. Generally speaking, though, I never had those before my wife moved in, because I run into things in the light. Like, I hit my head on things. I run into door frames all the time. Stub my toe all the time. So light or dark, that really doesn't make a difference. Did you see this story, though, about Quebec's, Montreal's version of Punxsutawney Phil?
Yes.
They
Fred
have their own
Lamarmotte?
version?
Yeah. His name is Fred. Fred
Okay.
Lamarmotte. Marmotte. It's the French
Okay.
groundhog, the French-Canadian groundhog. He died. They tried to wake him up this morning to see his shadow, and he was dead.
That sucks. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to our friends in Montreal.
Punxsutawney Phil put out a hit, man.
Imagine how traumatizing that must have been for all the youths that were at the groundhog ceremony.
Little Pierre
And they can't wake
And-
Fred up.
Stephanie, who
Little-
showed up to see the little groundhog, little marmotte.
Little Richard is just going to be
Yeah.
crying to his mother the rest of the day.
Poor Richard. Yeah, that's brutal. Did you know, speaking of French things, do you know Fulton and I took a French class together that he dropped 2 weeks in when we were at KU, and he has no recollection of it?
I have none.
He does
I
not.
have zero.
I'm like, yeah, I have the teacher's name. I know what room we were in, what
Nope.
building we were in. Fulton has no recollection of it.
Not one.
That's wild, because I don't have much recollection of any of my college classes either, though. Like, I remember my high school classes, but I do not remember my college classes.
I remember-
like, other than the history classes I took, which was my major, like, I can give you something, but not a lot about a lot of the classes I took. Like, I don't remember a lot of them.
I remember some of them, but Brendan swears that for 2 weeks we were in a class together. I do not remember an ounce of this.
Our instructor was not French. She was actually Russian. Her name was Irina. She was very abrasive.
I don't remember any of this.
Fulton sat next to me.
Did
We met 3 days a week, and he sat next to me.
I don't remember this.
Dropped the class and doesn't remember.
So if I remember correctly, I think that was a class I dropped because I was doing KU softball that semester, and I grossly underestimated the amount of work it was going to be, and I needed to give my brain a break. I think that's what happened.
It would be
But again,
worse.
I don't remember any of this.
It would be worse if you'd taken the class a whole year and you didn't remember it.
See, that
that
would be worse. That would be much worse. Brendan tells me this every time, and every time I go, I don't remember this. I knew we both took French. I knew enough about
A
that.
lot of things I've done for 2 weeks and then forgotten about immediately after they were done.
That's fair.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I figured the number of times I've brought it up, it would have rung a bell at some point.
I'm telling you, man, it doesn't.
No.
And you've brought this up more than once over all the years we've known each other. I don't know why that piece of memory never formed.
Texter on the Big O Tires text line from the 785 has a good question regarding the tragic and untimely passing of our guy Fred. Does that mean there are 365 days of winter for Canada?
I saw somebody put on Twitter that this meant global warming is now irreversible. That's what that signifies.
Good Lord.
Take something grim and make it grimmer.
Yeah, we have
of
reached
course.
nuclear winter, essentially.
Oh,
That's
boy.
what this indicates. I wonder how they came up with Fred.
I do too. It's not very French name.
I mean, Frederic.
That's fair.
Maybe if you went to class, you would know that. Unbelievable.
Fair.
I'm going to find Irina, and I'm going to ask her about that class.
I never took a foreign language in college.
Really?
Really?
Tested out completely. I took 4 years of, so I took Spanish in middle school, which not a lot of, I don't
Mhm.
know if that's
Yeah.
a common thing, but I took
Wasn't
Spanish
for me, at least.
through middle school. And then so I was already fairly advanced in my freshman year of high school. And then I finished in my junior year, I took AP Spanish and passed that. And so that would have cleared my requirement in most universities, but I wasn't sure. So senior year, I signed up for AP Spanish literature. And it was about halfway through my senior year that I decided where I was going to go to school. And so I was going to go to DePaul. And I found out that I did not need another AP foreign language credit to test out of further foreign language credit. So did I take that AP Spanish lit
Nope.
final? Nope. Did I go to that class much second semester?
Nope.
Nope. Did the teacher notice? Nope. She was a bit
My
touched
man.
upstairs.
My man.
She had a lot going on.
A little
Uh,
flighty.
Yeah, a little flighty. That's a good way to put it. Now, I showed up like a week from the end of class. Was like, oh, wow, I don't know why you don't have those 12 assignments. Let me get those to you. And got them done in a week's time. And that was my experience in AP Spanish Lit.
So when I was in junior high, you could take French or Spanish, and it was the high school curriculum. They just split it up over 2 years. So like in 7th and 8th grade, you took what was essentially French 1. They just made it really slow for you so you could learn it more easily, I guess. So I took it in junior high. I took it in my freshman, sophomore, and junior years of high school. And I was like, nah, that's fine. I'm not taking it for a 4th year. I've got more than enough. I'm good. Then I choose KU. I go through, you file all the paperwork when you're going to college, wherever you have to say, do you test out of this? I test out of English. I never had to take an English class as a journalism major, which odd. But
Man,
But
I took more. That means I took more English classes than you did in college.
Same.
Right.
Same.
I essentially had to do English things in some journalism
Yeah,
classes,
I mean,
but
you have to take the
I
English
never had to
course.
take
Yeah.
English. I had to take a French test to see if I would test out of it, because I took it in high school, but I didn't take AP. So I said, okay, if you test out of it, you'll clear the first level of it. I got such a low score. I had not taken it for 1 year. I had such a low score. They're like, yeah, you have to start at the very bottom level of the totem pole.
You're like, awesome,
But damn,
great.
I didn't think it was this rough.
I
So
took
then
3 years of French in high school, did not even attempt to test out in college because I knew I'd already forgotten so much of it, and then took it in college.
Now that I think about it, I remember the class, my major, my minor, journalism and history. I remember some of those classes and the people and instructors and whatnot, but I don't remember anything else I took.
I remember a
And French, I
handful-
guess, because
yeah.
I know you weren't there.
Yeah, apparently. I remember a handful of classes I took, but I know there was plenty of them that I just completely forgot. Beyond, apparently, we did French for 2 weeks together.
See, and I wasn't even a partier. As the text line has made fun of me for before, I was pretty boring.
You have right now 3 people who did not drink their way through their college experiences.
No! There,
No, man, literally not once.
No, you don't have a room full of from Animal House. You don't have a room full of Blutos here.
No, even more so. None of us 3 are Jake.
Yeah, party boy Jock.
Yeah,
LeBron.
no, you have 3 dudes who just went through life.
I think frequently about when we went to Big 12 Football Media Day in 2021, and we had to drive through Oklahoma City to get there, and we did the show live from the Oklahoma City downtown library.
What a fun day this was.
Because we couldn't find a hotel conference room to go to. We couldn't find anywhere. So we went to a public library, reserved study rooms, and did the show. That it was a mess. Fulton was on the board. It was a mess.
I can confirm this was a gigantic mess.
And we walk into the building, and there's people, studying. Oklahoma City's a real city. There's schools around. There are people,
It's a real city.
but
It's a real place.
Like there's stuff around. There's not a total mega metropolis, but there's lots of stuff around. There's lots of people doing things, business, industry, school,
They have
whatever.
a major sports team.
Yeah.
They do. Multiple universities.
Yeah.
And Jake leans over to me. He's like, why are there people here? What do you mean, why are there people here? Like, what are they doing? Like, they're reading, Jake. It's a library. Look at all the books. What do you mean, what are they doing?
I would not be surprised if that was the first time the man had ever stepped foot in a library.
He could not believe that people were working or reading or studying. It was like blinding him that this was happening. But dude, even I didn't go to the library much in college. I mostly just, I didn't have roommates a bunch, so I just stayed home and studied most of the time. But you go to the library for anything. He goes, I didn't.
I'm a big library guy. I used to go Royo all the time. Royo West Library at DePaul University. I used to go Royo all the time and write my papers and listen to music and just do my thing. Get a cup of coffee.
He could not believe it. He was just in awe
that doesn't surprise me.
that people went to the library.
Jake in libraries not
think about
mixing
it
big
all
shot.
the time.
Wasn't Jake academic all MIAA?
He was the Washburn Student Athlete of the Year. He was like, why are people at the library? A bunch of nerds. I couldn't believe it.
I am now fully convinced if we grilled Jake and went back to his time in college, that man has paid several nerds to do his assignments for him.
Some people, different environments are more compelling, different results and different levels of success as a student. Maybe he liked being in the midst of chaos.
We've got a comment here on YouTube from Matt who says, why can I see Fulton and Brendan having Madden tournaments in college? And then Vance replied, because they did. Yeah, I played Madden all the time in college. Yeah. My freshman year, my roommate, I've told this story before, my roommate, cool dude, like barely had anything. He had an Xbox, a TV, and one button-down shirt in his closet. Like he lived out of a suitcase and went home to his mom to do his laundry every weekend. And we played NCAA all the time. Like, as soon as the NFL season ended, we played NCAA constantly. That's like my whole freshman year.
No, I played a frankly disgusting amount of NCAA football over the course of my 4 years in college.
I played an absurd amount of NCAA, of Madden, of MLB. I played
college
an
hoops.
Absurd amount of those games.
I played a lot of college hoops, 2K6. I played a lot of MLB The Show. Played a little Madden. That was kind of the time where Madden was starting to become the lesser of the siblings with NCAA football, at least in my eyes. No, that was my social life in college.
I
didn't have one.
I didn't drink. I still don't. So I had no use to like get a fake ID and go to the bars or anything. So my partying, I would be up till like 1:30, 2 o'clock, just hanging out at home. Then people would come back from the bar, and then the party would start. So I'd be up till like 5 a.m. with the people post drinking.
I've never been a party guy, and so I just hung out at home for the most part.
Sometime on Crosstalk, we'll share the time that you got mud all over my apartment after a night out drinking, Fulton.
The mud story.
I still feel bad about that. I remember that, and I feel bad.
All over the damn place. There's mud everywhere.
Caked in mud.
Ridiculous. This is 580 Sports Talk. Maybe we should ask one specific sports question.
Sure.
Initial read on Super Bowl 57.
Has
the line moved again, by the way, or is it still Eagles
still
1.5?
1.5? Still what I'm seeing. DraftKings put out a visual. Darren Ravel put out the visual from the folks at Betting House DraftKings, and they showed a map of how different states are betting the spread on their app. Other than the state of Kansas, every other state where that particular app is legal is all over the Eagles at 1.5 point favorites.
That is very
interesting,
but also totally understandable, I think. And look, if I was a Chiefs fan, I'd be crazy confident in my team too. When you've got number 15 at quarterback, absolutely.
Pretty good run of underdogs winning the game too in recent years.
That's true. That's a good point.
It has been, and just here's overall. It's like Jake and I talked about it earlier today on Crosstalk on Mic'd Up. I think this game will be very close. I think this game comes down to the defensive and offensive line. This will be a trench-based game. But for the Chiefs defensive line, there's been a lot of talk to a level about, pass rush and things like that, and can they get home and all that. That, to me, is secondary to what they need to do in this game. This game comes down to, can the Chiefs stop the run? If the Chiefs can neutralize the running game for the Eagles, I take the Chiefs easily without getting a second thought. If Philly can run the ball at will, I give the Chiefs a 5% chance of winning this game. And that's what when I think about this game in the opening portions of it, that is the big thing that's constantly at the forefront of my mind. It comes down to, can Philly run the ball?
Does it feel to you at all like Super Bowl 54?
I have a tiny bit.
I really feel like this matchup is very similar to Super Bowl 50. Like these Eagles remind me a lot of those 49ers.
A team that can run the ball really well, a quarterback that's not really. I think Jalen Hurts is a bit more proven as being able to drop back and throw the football, but still not as much. And then a defense that is very good, but mildly untested.
That's an interesting comparison.
But I think it's apt to an extent.
And maybe I wouldn't feel that way about it if it were not like a Chiefs Super Bowl. That's just an easy parallel to draw.
Yeah.
But that is kind of the vibe I'm getting going into this game, is that the Eagles kind of feel like that 49er team to me, where you can make a compelling case that they maybe have more strengths than the Chiefs do. Like if you did a tail of a tape, maybe you'd have the eagle in more locations than the Arrowhead logo on a graphic or something like that. But there's still a significant quarterback advantage for the Chiefs, and their defense is more than capable, I think, of making some plays to blow up what the Eagles want to do.
I would argue, though, that I think and this is, I guess, in favor of the Eagles, Philly's receiving options are better than those 49ers. Now, tight end wise, I mean, Kittle is Kittle. He's phenomenal. He's better than Dallas Goedert. Goddard's good, but Kittle is better. But I think the Eagles receivers this year are better than those Niners receivers were.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, you're right. I mean, I've never been super Jalen Hurts guy. There's obviously a big gap there, but I think Hurts is still more dangerous than Garoppolo, more than anything, because of his ability to run.
Yes. I mean, different kinds of players we're talking about here. And certainly,
I see what you mean, though.
Yeah, Hurts is much more of a run threat, and it makes the Eagles' run game even more multidimensional. But again, when that game came down to it at the end, it became about Mahomes versus Garoppolo, and that's why the Chiefs pulled it out there in the fourth quarter. And if the Chiefs can make this game about Mahomes versus Hurts, I think they're going to win.
I'm with you, and I think that's what it can come down to as well. Is, Philly is the overall more talented team. When you look at the entire roster construction, 1 to 53, Philly has more talent. Like that is unquestioned. I think the Chiefs might have, though, the advantage at some of the key spots, and then more importantly, quarterbacks make everything go. And I've loved what I've seen from Jalen Hurts this year. He's made tremendous steps forward with the things he's been given. No one's Patrick Mahomes. And I think that's where Chiefs fans should still feel some confidence. I think this is a game that is close for all four quarters. I would be stunned if either team takes a real big lead at any point in this game when it happens. We'll see how injuries, kind of affect that as we going into next week. But looking at this early, I think this is a tight four-quarter game that really does come down to, if the Chiefs make the Eagles have to be a drop back, throw the football, make Hurts make plays with his arms team, I think that plays right into Kansas City's hand. But if Philly just gets to do what they want, which is run the football a ton, run their quarterback powers, run their option game with Hurts and with Sanders and with Gainwell, and really try to dominate from that front, I think that really makes it hard for the Chiefs, because at that point, you're asking Mahomes to be a level of special that he can be, but it's asking him so much to be, because if Philly can run their offense the way they're supposed to be, then they're going to put up a lot of points.
We'll get you out of here on this one. It's what we've asked you the last couple of times we've had you on for Crosstalk. Power ranking, Big 12. Go.
You know what? I think I'm going to go K-State 1, KU 2, Texas 3.
Whoa. So let's revisit here.
Yes.
3 or 4 weeks ago, it was at K-State like 6.
And then
now,
K-State
after
5.
losing by double digits to KU, they are ahead of KU still.
They've
lost 2 of 3. These are the last two Big 12 games.
And I think it's very tight. Like, I think 1v2 is like a 50.9 to 41.9, whatever the math actually shakes out to be. I'm not good at math.
They've also lost in the two toughest road venues in the league, Allen
That's true.
Fieldhouse
Yeah.
and Hilton, when Iowa State is good.
Yeah,
That's true.
And where I think with K-State versus KU, and easily you ask me this tomorrow, and I might think KU is higher. It comes down to I really like K-State's consistent ability to score. They've really only had one game where they can't score. And I think they have enough pieces that their defense will start to get into back of a bit of a groove to really give them more of a settling point. Kansas has found their strides a bit more lately, especially the last two games, but they're still showing that propensity to, if DeJuan Harris and Kevin McCullough don't show up, this Kansas team has a lot of struggles when it's just Jalen Wilson and Grady Dick. And I'm still just mildly worried about that consistent point of the other guys for KU, where K-State has shown a bit more ability to still score without as much from the other guys.
How would you order them right now?
Right now, I go KU, K-State, Texas. I go, KU, K-State, TCU with depending
all about
on Miles' health.
Yeah.
And that's why I have Texas above TCU. No, it's just
And
Miles'
then-
health is too much of a question mark.
Two real quick things before you leave, Fulton. Number one, we had a texter for the Big O Tires text line say that the story about you getting Brendan's apartment muddy reminded them of the energy turtle bit from King of the Hill. Just
Nice.
incredibly mean, but
Hell
also
yeah.
hilarious. Also,
That's
I need to defeat these particular allegations from Matt on the YouTube comments. Accusing me of drinking Zima while I played Madden in college. Never had a Zima in my life, Matt. I will defeat the Zima drinker allegations if it's the last thing I do.
Dan cannot let that slander stand.
It's
Also,
it's a
I'm not
Coors
that old.
It's a Coors beverage and you never had it?
I'm not that old. Zima was cool in the 90s. I graduated from college in 2008. Nobody drank Zima in the mid 2000s. Once again, I must defeat the Zima drinker allegations and the I'm old allegations.
To be fair, if you were old, like 10 years older, it would make more sense.
Yes. Then I would have played it on my Sega Genesis.
Pop out the N64. Fulton, what's going on tomorrow on Mic'd Up?
Tomorrow, Jake and I are going to continue our look at the Chiefs here going to the Super Bowl and discuss just what, if the Chiefs can make this win, what does it do for the legacies of guys like Mahomes, Chris Jones? What does it change for the Chiefs so they can get a win? We're also going to this Chiefs defense. They struggle with forcing turnovers so much this year, but they're on a bit of a roll doing that this year. We're going to look at kind of how that has become as of late, their ability to kind of generate takeaways.
We'll hear from you at noon tomorrow.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We'll take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you is next. We'll pick our new winner for the day on 580 Sports Talk. Time to find today's winner in What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Our winner for the week so far from yesterday, the first day of the month, were the folks who stole a truck, a semi-truck. It was pink. It was a bright pink truck. So they stole it, went to a Days Inn parking lot right off I-95 in North Florida, and they started spray painting it to try to cover it up and say, they'll never find the truck if it's a different color. And then someone ratted them out to the police, and they were subsequently arrested. Oh, by the way, the guy who was participating had fentanyl on him.
Yes, he did.
Not great. 2 news stories today, though. Dan, why don't you go first for today?
We are going to Lincoln, Nebraska, where we have a notorious toilet paper thief who stepped her game up a little bit at the Burger King near 60th Street and Havelock Avenue, who on December 12th stole the pipes behind the toilet at the Burger King. Security video showed the woman going into the bathroom and leaving with a, quote, strange bulge in her pants.
Never want that.
After she left, the pipes between the toilet and the wall were missing. Police say the woman has been suspected of stealing toilet paper from the restaurant on previous occasions. I think my favorite part of this is this is from KLKN Television. This is the ABC affiliate in Lincoln, Nebraska. And the story is tagged, and one of the tags on the story is strange bulge.
60th Street, Burger King, Crime Stoppers.
Unfortunately,
strange bulge.
Unfortunately, that's the only story with the strange bulge tag.
6 years from now, someone's going to be on KLKNTV.com and think, what was the name of that story? Strange bulge.
Yeah,
there it is.
The strange bulge story. No, so apparently
in quotation marks.
Full quotes, so that it will come up if you specifically search strange bulge. So she'd been stealing toilet paper from the restroom, and she's escalated. Took all the pipes. Wild move. Are they copper?
Hey, they gotta be. That's what's valuable.
You're right.
She had it her way. What can I say?
She was so tired. This is the tax that she is exercising from Burger King every time she sees that Whopper, Junior, double, triple, Whopper. You're all singing along in your cars.
I'm singing along in my head.
Impossible or bacon Whopper, I rule this day. Yeah, every time she hears
Burger
that.
King, hit us up. Oh my God. Yeah. Why do you keep stealing toilet paper?
Wild move.
That's very strange. My story is going to take us back near my neck of the woods, Cook County, Illinois. Specifically, the town my mom grew up in, actually. We're going to Harvey, Illinois. It's in the south suburbs of Chicago, where a former official in the Harvey School District is accused of embezzling over $1 million worth of chicken wings. We meet 66-year-old Vera Liddell. By the way, this story was sent to me by multiple people, including listeners, and again, my wife. She's been all over these recently. So she is the former director of food services at Harvey School District 152. The Cook County State Attorney's Office alleges that Liddell launched an embezzlement scheme that resulted in the theft of wings that cost taxpayers over $1.5 million. It began during the height of the COVID pandemic when schools were closed. All public schools were closed in Illinois. It was remote learning only. But because of that anyway, the school district was still ordering food so that low-income students and families that needed it could come pick up lunches. A very important program for a lot of people. So they kept ordering food anyway. So starting in July 2020 until literally yesterday, Liddell placed hundreds of unauthorized orders for food items, including 11,000 cases of chicken wings, for which the district was billed more than $1.5 million through the school district's vendor, Gordon Food Services. They were made separately from the legitimate orders made by the district. The food service company believed the purchases were authorized and billed the district for everything, and they paid the full bills, including for the unauthorized purchases. But last month, a district business manager doing a traditional mid-year audit discovered, hey, we're already $300,000 over our annual budget, and it's only January. School runs until May or June, as you may know. So they noticed something is very wrong here. They uncovered individual invoices signed by Liddell for the absurd quantities of chicken. Here's the real great kicker to the story. The school does not serve chicken wings because they don't want to serve bones to students in case of the choking hazard.
Man, I'd eat $1.5 million worth of chicken wings right now.
Damn
man.
right I would.
I don't give a damn. I eat those right now. No, she's just ordering wings for herself.
And saying, oh, yeah, we'll just make the school pay for it. And they did!
There
For
was
a year and a half.
There was a story like this a few years back with fajitas.
Yes, the fajita guy.
Yeah, the guy stole like $2 million in fajitas.
Right off the truck.
Yeah, that's what this one was doing.
What is a 66-year-old woman doing with that many chicken wings?
Shoot, getting a Cajun rub and putting them in the oven on 425 for 20 minutes.
Opening a Wingstop franchise. Real quick, we got to pick our winner for today. Who's got it?
I gotta go with the chicken wing lady.
Does that beat the truck spray painter?
I think she does.
I think it does too. That is unbelievable. Man, Abby's on a roll. That's 2 winners recently. That is not intended, by the way. You can always send us your What Is Wrong With Yous, by the way. Our DMs both open on Twitter. That's our winner for What Is Wrong With You. We've got to take a break. CJ Moore joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. CJ Moore covers college hoops for The Athletic, and he joins us every Thursday, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour during the Big 12 basketball season for the Big 12 basketball breakdown. Brought to you by the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Tremendous place to go watch a game, have a great meal, a beer, and hang out with some friends. It's the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence at the corner of 23rd Street and Castle. CJ, I've got to ask, have you started to miss our friend who was sitting in front of us at the Sunflower Showdown the other night, the over-exuberant KU fan in attendance?
Loud clapper is like David Putty from Seinfeld. Surprised he didn't have his face painted.
Got to support the team.
Yeah, he little over exuberant. It was a fun game on Tuesday at Allen Fieldhouse. A little bit slow and dragging with the whistles, but overall, CJ, what was your biggest takeaway from that contest? Whether it has to do with KU, K-State, or both, what really stands out the most to you 2 days later?
I think it was as I wrote about in Athletic, I think it was the others for KU stepping up. You know, Jalen Wilson has been so good. KJ Adams has been pretty good. They needed Juwan Harris to get going again. He'd kind of been in a little bit of a slump after, I thought first couple of months of the season he was really good. So got him going again, and then Kevin McCullough made some shots. That was huge. And then they get their, something out of their bench. And I think they're in a pretty good spot with their center position going forward. I think Ernest Uday and Zach Clements are, the combination of those is going to give them enough off the bench at the big man spot. I still, have some question marks about their guards off the bench, but the fact that those guys all played well was a good sign for Kansas.
How surprised were you that KU tried to go a little bit more too big during the second half of that matchup?
I think it was out of desperation in a sense because Kevin McCullough was hurt, and then Bobby Pettiford had his hamstring was kind of bothering him. So I think it was only because of that they did it. And I wouldn't expect a lot of that going forward.
As for the bench play overall, because I'm with you. I think Uday has looked pretty good in minutes in the last couple of games, and Clements looked far more comfortable on Tuesday night than he did even in the first matchup against K-State in Manhattan just over 2 weeks ago. That bench, though, it had struggled so much in recent games to really get any sort of production, especially on the offensive end. Then they have 19 points on Tuesday. If you had to prognosticate where the production would go or where it would trend for the rest of this regular season, do you think it's more the group that was able to score 19 points and give you really good minutes from pretty much everyone off the bench, or is it maybe closer to the concerning production we saw over the last 2 weeks?
Probably the concerning production over the last 2 weeks, I think. I don't, I've got to see way more than a game to expect that out of KU's bench. But I like I said, I do think the center spot's in a good spot right now. I think, Ernest Uday is going to produce in his minutes and give them what they need, which is really just rebounding, some rim protection, and be able to catch and dunk the ball. That's basically all he needs to do. So I think he's capable of that.
Our guest is CJ Moore of The Athletic. You can find him on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops, and you can hear him on with us at 580 Sports Talk every Thursday at this time. It is the Big 12 Basketball Breakdown, presented by our friends at 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. CJ, for K-State's part coming out of that game, they hit the midway point of the Big 12 season at 6-3, and that's better than anybody would have reasonably prognosticated entering this season. What do they need to shore up, improve on in the second go around in league play to make sure they remain in the mix for a conference championship?
I thought their defense was really good this past weekend against Florida. But if you look in their in-conference numbers, and then, the other night wasn't that great, eighth best in just conference games, their defense is. And, I think that needs to continue to get better. And I think getting David back, their starting center that'll help them. But, they just got to be a little more sharp on defense. But, hey, going into Alex Alvarez lose, and there's no shame in that.
Let's ask some quick fire questions about some of the other Big 12 contenders and how they stand here at the midway point. Right now, it's Texas at 7-2, standing alone atop the Big 12. They have been able to overcome quite a bit, obviously, beyond their control as players so far this season. Your colleague Dana O'Neill at The Athletic had a really great piece about that, talking to some of those Texas players. Their schedule is very difficult in the second half. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like they're a team that is equipped to navigate that and be able to continue to remain atop or in the mix, or are they going to run into a schedule that might deal them a bad hand?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at everybody's schedule kind of that's in the mix here going the rest of the way, theirs is probably the hardest. They're going to take some losses just because anybody who plays that schedule is going to take some losses. I think it's just important for them to win against the bottom 4 teams, take care of business there, and then win their home games, and they'll have a shot to win the conference title if they do that, because everybody's going to take some losses.
TCU currently without Mike Miles, who injured himself early in their SEC Big 12 Challenge game against Mississippi State. Horned Frogs lost that one in overtime, but rebounded to take a 4-point home win over West Virginia on Tuesday night. Can they keep it in the road without Mike Miles? And if they do, who's their most important player while he's out?
Man, that's really, really hard because he's so good. I mean, he's a first-team all-conference kind of guy. Damian Baugh, I think, becomes really, really important if Mike's going to be out, and Emmanuel Miller. Those two need to be really good for them to keep winning games. And then they got to get something out of Shahada Wales, is probably the guy that most benefits as far as playing time. So he's got to give them something. But yeah, I mean, losing Mike Miles is a tough thing to deal with.
Iowa State lost by quite a bit at Mizzou on Saturday. And hey, Mizzou's a good club. That wasn't terribly alarming, even if it was a little surprising that game was one-sided. Then Iowa State takes a 23-point lead with 12 and a half minutes ago against a last-place Texas Tech team without Fardaws Aimaq and Pop Isaacs. And then they stopped being able to get the ball over midcourt, and they lost that game in overtime. How bright red are the red flags or the alarms right now for Iowa State, or is this just a 2-game write-off stretch?
No, I think the combination of those things, those 2 games, is a little bit alarming. I think they were a team that was probably playing over their skis a little bit for a couple weeks, and they're kind of finding level here this last week or so, but they're still going to be a hard team to play. If I'm looking at those top 6 teams in the Big 12, Iowa State's probably the one that's at the bottom for me among those top 6, just because talent-wise, I don't think they're at the level of the other 6. But man, what they were able to do before those 2 losses is pretty. I mean, TJ Otzelberger is doing an awesome job there. But I just think their talent is at the level where they can easily lose to those bottom 4 teams in the Big 12, and not to say that that's a bad loss, because those bottom 4 are awful.
Couple more minutes with CJ Moore of The Athletic. He joins us for the Big 12 basketball breakdown here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by our friends at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. You can find CJ on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops, and of course, all of his tremendous work over at theathletic.com. Make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already. Looking at the bottom of the conference, CJ, one team that won last night that I am at least intrigued by is Oklahoma State, because I don't know if they've got a ton of Big 12 top-end talent, but they've got plenty of guys who really can play. I like Mike Boynton a lot. Love his attitude, love his energy. For Oklahoma State specifically, what do you think it will take for them to go on a little bit of a run and to put themselves in NCAA tournament, at least bubble position?
Oh, they've got the athletes. They've got the defense. They just got to be able to score the basketball at a somewhat, decent rate. They're the worst offensive team in this league. And that's kind of been the thing with Boynton every year. Like he builds teams that are very athletic and long and can guard, but they always struggle to score. So, he's got to have big second half out of guys like Bryce Thompson and Avery Anderson. Guys that Caleb Asbury, guys that can score, are capable of it. But they don't get the easiest shots, and they've just got to, it's as simple as they've just got to be better offensively.
The other teams that are currently in the basement of the Big 12, like West Virginia is 2-7 in the league, but that's not a bad team. In fact, KenPom still has them in the top 20, I believe, at least last I checked. That's still a competitive team. Oklahoma still is. Texas Tech, even though they are last in the league, obviously they can still compete to a decent degree as well. Is there an avenue, and I'm not going to ask you to necessarily pick who does or doesn't get to the big dance, but is there a fairly clear avenue for either West Virginia or Oklahoma to put together a bit of a run, to get to tournament positioning? Or does it feel at this point like maybe they're a little too far back to make that big of a jump?
I think you got to get to probably at least 7 wins to be in consideration. And depending on what happens in other leagues and and what happens with the bubble. But I think at the bare minimum, you got to get to 7 wins.
That is that's going to be tough for both of those teams. I mean, again, there's talent there. There's good coaching. We know that, but that's going to be tough.
West Virginia, you look at KenPom, they're projected to win 7, go 7-11. So maybe they can get there. I don't know. But you're going to have to knock off a few of those top 6 teams. That also helps, not only to get to 7, but at least a couple of those against the top 6.
Yeah, win against the true class of the conference. The last thing I want to get to with you, CJ, let's reverse course and go back to K-State here. You wrote a tremendous feature, and if you haven't read it yet at The Athletic, go check it out. The headline of it is "The Radically Kind Coach and Diminutive Star Guard Fueling College Basketball's Best Story." It's all about K-State, Jerome Tang, Marquise Noel, and just what is going on in Manhattan. I know today we're talking about, or coming off of a loss for K-State earlier in the week, but radically kind, I think, is a great way to put what Jerome Tang is as a person, as a coach, all of that. But with a couple of days embedded with that program, CJ, what really to you stands out the most about Jerome Tang? Whether it's the way he coaches, the way he treats people and players, what about him and his aura really grabbed your attention the most?
Well, I just think it's his positivity and I think the thing, like, he was around Scott Drew for 20 years. Like they're similar in that way of just being positive, and he's got a little bit more edge to him than Scott does, though. But I think the thing that is so impressive to me about Jerome is he seems to always be able to say the right thing at the right time, whether that's in a press conference, whether that's speaking with his team in a tough moment in practice. He just always he has a way of just knowing what to say and knowing who to say it to and at the right time to get people to either like him or get the best out of him. And I think it's fun. I was telling somebody the other night, like I really like Bruce Weber. Like I thought Bruce Weber was a really good dude. I think he's a good coach. But the thing with Bruce is he did not know, particularly with the media. Like he struggled with that game. He struggled with knowing what the right thing to say. And it's just the total opposite with Jerome. But it's not just with the media; it's with his team. That's the more important part. Is with his team, he seems to know the right thing. The way to motivate guys, the way to get them to understand something.
CJ, are you headed to a game this weekend?
No, for the first time in a little bit, I'm not. I'm going to have an actual. I might even turn off my computer for a day. So,
hey,
yeah, I'm looking forward to. I've got some stories to catch up on that are in the notebook that I need to write. So I'm stepping away, not going to games for a while. I will be at KU Texas on Monday, and then I think I'm going to go to the KU Baylor game here in a couple of weeks. But other than that, I'm just sitting at my computer and typing away.
Well, enjoy the time away from the arena, working on some of that. Can't wait to see it all over at theathletic.com. That is where you can find the work of CJ Moore. You can also find him on Twitter at CJ Moore Hoops. He joins us every Thursday during the Big 12 season for the Big 12 Basketball Breakdown, brought to you by 23rd Street Brewery. CJ, as always, man, we appreciate you taking some time for us. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. You have a good one.
That is CJ Moore from The Athletic, and really cannot recommend it enough. Go check out the piece about Jerome Tang, Marquise Noel, what K-State has done. It is absolutely sensational. I should have told CJ this while he was on the line. His features, man, are so good. They are so freaking good.
There aren't a lot of guys who can write a really good takeout piece, a real good feature piece. Can write a deadline piece well, and can do like the tape breakdown stuff, like CJ can. And yeah, he's a triple threat. Like we're fortunate to get to speak with him and bring his insight.
And we're not just saying that because he's our friend and he comes on with us. He's just really that dang good. If you haven't subscribed to The Athletic, go do so. Check out all of CJ's work. With that, we need to take a break for the national and local news. We've got headlines, Mitch Holthus, and more next hour on 580 Sports Talk. now, 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero with you on this Thursday, February 2nd. Thank you so much for stopping by. You can go check out our website, 580wibw.com. If you are looking to find the podcast version of the show, it's very simple. There's a podcast tab right in the middle of the page. Hover your cursor over that. Then when a menu pops up, you'll see an option for 580 Sports Talk. Click on that, and boom, you'll find the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show. You can also go to YouTube and rewind the live video. That's right. You don't just have to watch us live. You can go back and watch some old parts of the show as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, now is the absolute perfect time to do so. That's where you can find all the live streams of the show, past live streams as well. Instant reaction videos to every Chiefs game and all the KU and K-State games we attend as well, plus Washburn Athletics 2. You can find all those reactions, all those videos, and so much more on our YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Appreciate all you guys who have subscribed so far. And again, if you haven't, no better time than right now. Coming up here in this 5 o'clock hour, we'll get a quick note on last night's college basketball action. Near disaster for our best bets from yesterday's show. Thankfully, we each were able to pull one of the two out.
Yep. Hey, if you bet with us last night, you were down the juice.
That's okay. You can live with that. Well, I hope you can live with that. If you can't live with that, you might need to step away from the phone for a little bit. I'm not trying to judge. I'm just being honest. So we'll talk a little bit about some college basketball action. Bottom of this hour, Mitch Holthus is going to join us for our weekly chat about all things Chiefs. How excited do you think Mitch is to get another trip in early February? Is this like for a guy who, and we'll ask him this, but spent so many years loving his job, obviously pouring everything he has into it, and a lot of heartbreak for the Chiefs, a lot of seasons that didn't even get to the heartbreaking point. They just maybe weren't very good. And now you got 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. I mean, that's got to just be the coolest feeling.
Like a magic carpet ride that hasn't stopped.
Man, that is awesome. That is so cool for Mitch. We'll talk to him coming up later on in this hour. But right now, we've got to get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. They're brought to you, as always, by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can visit them online. You know where. BlueDotKansas.com. First headline for me, the Chiefs injury report from today. 4 DNPs. Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster. That was a bad voice crack just now.
Yeah.
Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, L'Jarius Sneed, as well as Kadarius Toney. The reason I put a little extra emphasis on Sneed, he was able to at least get on the field and work out a little bit, stretch, warm up a little bit. We didn't think he was going to be out there at all today, so maybe that's some positive news.
It's an indication that he has progressed to that point in the concussion protocol, that things are moving forward for him. So it's as good a sign, I think, as you could hope for reasonably the Thursday before the game.
And again, Toney, Smith-Schuster, Hardman, the 3 wide receivers, they were all DNPs. You need at least a couple of those guys, I think, to be ready to go.
Now, Andy Reid said flatly, doesn't look like Mecole Hardman's going to make it. Like at this stage, it does not look like Mecole Hardman is going to be able to suit up for Super Bowl 57. But Reid also said that Toney is close and is progressing well from the ankle injury. Now, he's listed as ankle and hamstring, but it was the ankle that was the concern, that he tweaked, kind of got rolled up on it funny, being tackled low from behind, and kept him out of the rest of the AFC Championship game. We only saw 4 snaps. So initial indications for him are good.
Mm-hmm.
Initial indications for Hardman are not. Initial indications for Juju, we don't really have a lot of initial indication. He's managing some knee swelling. Matt Derrick, who we'll talk to tomorrow here on 580 Sports Talk, earlier this week, he was on with the guys on Mic'd Up and said that what Juju's dealing with his knee is probably like chronic at this point.
Yeah.
It's probably just the kind of thing he's going to have to figure out how to manage as best he can. And so I would be certainly the most optimistic at this stage about Toney and the least optimistic about Hardman, but I would be more optimistic than pessimistic about Juju, particularly if he can be on the field practicing by the time next week's practices start. If he's DNP next Wednesday, then it's panic time for him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other names on the injury report for the Chiefs, Willie Gay limited for the second day in a row. Yesterday, there was just an estimation. They didn't really have a real practice yesterday. He has been limited each day, though. Trey Smith, they presumed yesterday he would be limited. He was a full go today, so that was good to see for him. He should be all set. 4 names also have been full participants each day. Pacheco, Mahomes, McKinnon, and Watson. They will all hopefully be good to go. Watson was dealing with an illness. I would hope in another week and a half's time he would still be good to go. That would otherwise be extremely concerning.
Yeah.
Be very worried about Justin Watson.
Have like mono or...
Yeah, right? Got to get the Sam Darnold graphic back up.
Out indefinitely.
Mononucleosis. On the Eagles side of things, 5 players listed as DNPs both yesterday and today, all of them given double reasons why. A body part and then rest. And it is 3 members of their offensive line. Backup center Cam Jurgens, guard Landon Dickerson, tackle Lane Johnson, cornerback Avonte Maddox, and defensive end Robert Quinn. Elbow/rest, groin/rest, hip/rest, toe/rest, and finally foot/rest.
So Lane Johnson is playing with a torn groin. Like, that's well known. Like, that's not getting better. Like, that's you're only managing that. Landon Dickerson hurt his elbow late in the NFC Championship game. It didn't look good when it happened, but they are optimistic that he's going to play. Avonte Maddox missed a pretty good chunk of the season with that toe injury. He came back and played in the NFC Championship game. He's important for their defense. He's a very good player.
And look, you want as many pass rushers as you can get out there. So you want Robert Quinn.
God, forgot they had Robert Quinn.
Right.
All the dudes they've got, 4 double-digit sack guys, and they got a guy who's had a 20-sack season just kind of chilling in the rotation.
Can I propose? You can tell me if this is a dumb proposal. I think for the Super Bowl, there should be no inactives. Like, you could already make an argument that there should be fewer inactives from the 53/55-man roster on game day because of the number of injuries that happen in the NFL. I don't think there should be inactives for the Super Bowl. I think you should just be able to use whatever you have.
Dress the practice squad guys too.
Well, maybe not practice squad, but like the guys who, if you're on the 53, you can play in the Super Bowl. I don't know strategically what that would change, but I just feel like, hey, last game of the year, everything you've got, put it into the game. It'd almost be symbolic more than anything, I guess.
I guess I don't hate that idea, honestly. I don't hate it.
Roger Goodell, give me a call. That is your participation report for today, though. We'll update you tomorrow. Hopefully we get some good news, if nothing else, on Snead and Tony. The Snead situation with a concussion, I mean, it's just, it'll get better when it gets better.
Yeah, you can't rush that along. But again, there are stages of recovery, and one of the stages to return to play in the concussion protocol is being able to go through like a light workout or light stretching, and it appears that Snead is already there, which is very good.
I would agree. What do you have for your first headline today?
I'm not going to front. It is a very slow news day today.
Yes, it is.
So I'm not going to lie to you folks. The headlines are not going to be maybe as in-depth. Like, this is what we have for a headline today. We have a member of a team that is not playing in the Super Bowl kind of backhandedly complimenting the head coach of a team that is in the Super Bowl. So on NFL Network today, New York Giants safety Julian Love was asked about Eagles coach Nick Sirianni and said, quote, "He's a guy who really is doing a good job because he's not getting in the way of his team. He has an experienced roster from top to bottom, offense and defense." That is a fairly accurate thing to say, I think, about Nick Sirianni. The host of NFL Network's Good Morning Football then asked Love for his reaction to Sirianni's sideline demeanor while showing a widely circulated video clip of the Eagles' second-year coach nodding triumphantly in front of a camera during Philadelphia's victory over Love's Giants in the NFC's divisional round. Love didn't take too kindly to that and responded, quote, "I don't like it. I don't like it at all. He's in for a free ride right now. You guys can coach this team." He would later double down on Twitter saying, quote, "Philly fans sure don't like this one, LOL, but I'm not wrong. This is a players league and Philly has dogs on the roster top to bottom. It's no mystery why they're in this position." Quick aside, it's fascinating how dog is a compliment now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. You got that dog in you. Like, it's a compliment now. It used to be the most insulting thing you could say about a player.
You're dogging it.
Yeah. I think it's just generally we like dogs more now than
Yeah.
maybe we used to.
Yeah, that's probably fair. There's a culture around it.
Yeah, the way we talk about dogs.
Look, I agree to a point that, I mean, it is a players' league, but it is also full of strategy, almost over-strategized at times. And even if Sirianni wasn't like a really smart play designer, caller, coordinator, all of that, he's still clearly a great motivator. I mean, those dudes love Nick Sirianni, and he shows them love right back. And that's the story of most or many successful coaches, right? That you find a way to get the best out of the guys you have. And even if you say, hey, look, the Eagles are the best roster in the NFL, of course they make it to the Super Bowl. It's not that simple. I mean, we've seen that time and time and time again, that the best roster doesn't always get you there. The best individual players don't always get you there. You need to get the best out of them, and Sirianni has done that. And that's before even saying, I think he's a really good offensive coach. His scheme works. They do things that no one else is doing, and it works.
Yeah, and they're aggressive on fourth down. They're lethal in third and fourth and short. Like they are ahead of the curve in some ways, I think, analytically. Like there's a lot to like about Nick Sirianni, which is wild. Because if you'd asked me the day of Nick Sirianni's introductory press conference, what the Eagles would be doing in 2 Februaries, I would not have said getting ready for a Super Bowl. I might have said getting ready to hire a new coach. Because Sirianni didn't have a ton of offensive coordinator experience when the Eagles hired him to replace Doug Peterson. And his introductory press conference was like deer in the headlights times 10. It was a disaster. It was a notable disaster. Like he was visibly uncomfortable at the dais, talking about himself, talking about, the future of his new team. And a lot of people said, I can't believe this guy got a job. Like, can't believe this guy is getting a chance. He looks like he's going to be very clearly out of his depth. And here he is coaching this team in the Super Bowl. So, first impressions aren't everything. And clearly the impression he's made on his players has been much more important. Love is also correct that there is a ton of talent, and it would take quite a bit to screw up what the Eagles have.
Yeah.
But, sometimes not getting in the way and inspiring your guys to give you their best is all you need to do.
It is kind of amazing. I mean, just the turnaround that Philadelphia has done from winning the Super Bowl, still being good, sucking, and then suddenly within 6 years going back to the Super Bowl.
They really only had the one awful year, right?
Yeah.
They had the 4-win season that got Peterson fired. And they had 9 wins last year, made the playoffs, and 14 wins this year.
The fact that they've done that in and of itself is extremely impressive. But to me, it's the fact that you could have made an argument that the year they won the Super Bowl, they also had the best roster in the NFL. Like, they have entirely new players for the most part. I mean, you've still got Jason Kelce, who's around. You've still got a couple of guys on the defensive line who are still around.
It's like 5 guys. It's Fletcher Cox. It's Brandon Graham. It's Lane Johnson. It's Jason Kelce. And like Jake Elliott.
Yeah, Jake. Shout out to Lions Township High School.
I wanted to give you that.
Thank you.
I think that's it. I think those are the only guys that are still around.
And they had one of the best rosters, if not the best, in 2017. And
which is why they won with a backup quarterback.
Yep. And now again, this year, it truly, truly incredible stuff that Howie Roseman has done for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that you can do it in a short amount of time. I mean, they went from Super Bowl champion to lousy to 1 win away from being Super Bowl champion again. And all of that occurring in a time frame where the Denver Broncos still have not gone back to the playoffs.
I like you slipping that in there.
Yeah.
Next headline for me on our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. I'll give you one. We had National Signing Day yesterday. I'll give you a local one, I should say. National Signing Day for the class of 2023 was yesterday. Well, today, KU got a big commit for the class of 2024. Quarterback Isaiah Marshall out of the state of Michigan. KU has recruited Michigan hard. That was an area they recruited a lot while the Leipold staff, it's pretty much been the same staff the whole time he's been at D1. They recruited Michigan hard when he was at Buffalo. They have done the same with players now in Michigan while they're at Kansas. Rich Miller, probably KU's best player from the state of Michigan, but they've recruited a lot of kids in the last 2 cycles from that state. Marshall is a highly rated 3-star. He's got an 89 rating from 24/7 Sports. That's the highest grade they give to 3 stars. Like 1 point higher, he would be graded as a 4-star prospect. He is the top number 23 quarterback in the country, number 9 player in the state of Michigan. Had multiple other Power 5 offers, Cincinnati, Boston College among them. He also had a reported offer from Michigan, although that was likely not a committable offer. 6 foot, 199 pounds. He's the highest ranked quarterback recruit KU has ever gotten. That is a big, big deal. Now, the recruiting services are also far more sophisticated than they were even in, say, like 2006, 2007, when Todd Reesing came in, who had a bunch of adulation. But in terms of the recruiting service projections and rankings and all that, Isaiah Marshall's the top-ranked prospect that KU's ever had at quarterback. That's a big deal for 2024. Now, though, is the hard part for KU. You got him the first time. Michael Swain's been all over this recruitment for a while over at Fog.net. Now you got to keep him until December when you have early signing day for 2024. That is the hard part of all this.
Especially now. Yeah. You've got to be lining things up, with your NIL collective, making sure that he feels the love and he feels like he's going to be taken care of when he does get to campus. It's a much longer game now. You've got to be recruiting until the ink is dry. And then beyond that, even in this new era. One more quick headline for me here at Blue Dot of Kansas Sports Headlines. Couple of NFL coordinator notes. We talked yesterday about Vic Fangio and where the veteran defensive coordinator might ending up. Looks like Miami is the answer to that question. Vic Fangio is expected to be the defensive coordinator under Mike McDaniel in Miami. There was some thought that with Denver hiring Sean Payton, that Fangio might want to go work for his old friend and go back to a place where he had previously been the head coach and be the defensive coordinator. Hey, worked with Wade Phillips, but not the case. He will be instead decamping to Miami and being the defensive coordinator there. Meanwhile, Sean Payton's old team, the New Orleans Saints, they need a new defensive coordinator. They already lost co-defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen. He is going to be the Atlanta defensive coordinator moving forward. Chris Richard was the co-defensive coordinator with Nielsen, and he will not return as the Saints co-defensive coordinator. That has been reported today. So the Saints are now looking for a new DC.
I wouldn't want that job. If there's only 32 defensive coordinator jobs, so obviously you go take one if you can get one. That Saints team feels like it is on the precipice of total nuclear meltdown at this point. I know it helps to get the draft picks from the Peyton trade. That roster's not good, man. And I don't think Dennis Allen's it.
I like they've got Chris Olave, who I like. Demario Davis doesn't age. One of the best linebackers in football. The rest of the roster is.
Cam Jordan's a good player, but he's on the back nine.
Right. Him and Demario Davis, really. So, it looks kind of grim, the short term, and we'll see what the long term looks like. But, the short term looks really grim in New Orleans.
Final headline for me real quick from college basketball. Hey, University of Texas, pony up. That's what Alabama basketball is saying. Nate Oates, the head coach of the Crimson Tide basketball program, is receiving, according to John Rothstein, a contract extension through the 28-29 season, expected to be worth in excess of $4 million annually. Alabama's got the money to keep whoever they want to keep for any of their teams. And up in the price for Nate Oates, Texas is going to be coming hard after Nate Oates. And frankly, every major program in the country should be going hard after. Like if Kentucky misses the tournament this year, I don't think they will. But if they did, for example, like we talked about earlier in the year.
Or for any reason they want to move off Coach Cal.
Yeah, they would go after Nate Oates. Hell, if Bill Self was 5 or 6 years older, I'd say that is who I want. That is number 1, number 2, and number 3 on my list. I want that guy.
Yeah, he can really coach.
He is a stud of a coach. So, Texas, you are on alert. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines, brought to you, as always, by Blue Dot of Kansas. We're going to take a timeout. We've got some college basketball notes coming up next later on this hour. Mitch Holthus will join us right here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on 580 Sports Talk, 528 on this Thursday afternoon. We each gave you a couple of best bets for college basketball last night. We went 1-1. My A10 bet did not go so well. The Bonnies picked up a win over Richmond. That was surprising. And then, thankfully, Marquette was able to hold on to win by 6 last night. So 1-1 for me, 1-1 for you as well.
Yeah, rough one for the Tennessee Volunteers. I trusted Rick Barnes. That was my first mistake. Deciding after his team took a 6-point lead midway through the second half to just not double team Colin Castleton, who is the only reliable source of offense for Florida. And Castleton cooked them for the final 10 minutes or so. And Florida ended up with a rather sizable victory in an upset over Tennessee. But Caleb Boone over 12.5 points. He got there in the first half, had 18 in Oklahoma State's win last night.
I don't know. I haven't seen the schedule for tonight. Is Indiana Purdue tonight, or is that this weekend?
I do not believe that is tonight. I think
Okay.
that's this weekend. There's not much tonight. I think Gonzaga plays. There might be a Pac-12 game or two, but this is a lean night on the old college basketball schedule. Houston's at Wichita State. I don't expect the Shockers to be able to give the third-ranked team in the country much of a game. Oregon's at Arizona.
Okay.
Santa Clara's at Gonzaga. Another good West Coast Conference game. San Francisco at St. Mary's. Late one on ESPN.
that'll be a good game
for you.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bleak otherwise. A couple of local kids are going to go head-to-head in the Summit League tonight. I do not know where you can watch this game. It's not even on ESPN+. North Dakota at South Dakota State. Zeke Mayo at South Dakota State, who has become one of their best players, if not their very best player, the Lawrence High product. And North Dakota, Topeka West's own Elijah Brooks' team.
That's right.
So a couple of local kids from Northeast Kansas will go head-to-head up in the Upper Plains coming up tonight at 7 o'clock. Also, speaking of college basketball, real quick before we get to Mitch, have you seen this story from the Big Ten with Illinois' student section, the
Yes.
Orange Crush, and Iowa Athletics? This story is wild. So Illinois' the student section, the Orange Crush. When I grew up, it was like a big deal. Like we talk about the great student sections and all of college sports, college basketball. When I was growing up in that area of the country, being part of the Orange Crush was like the ultimate college experience. And for the last 20 years, they have done one trip as a student section to a different Big Ten school every year. And they've hit a couple of schools multiple times, including Iowa. Fairly short trip to get, fairly-ish short to get from Champaign to Iowa City. Well, they posed, the Orange Crush did, they did some charity stuff to raise money to pay for 150 tickets, I believe it was, to go to Illinois at Iowa. Well, they posed as a charity. And
Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, Boys and Girls Club, and got tickets at a discounted group rate that way. And again, they did some charity work to raise the money in the first place, but they're not a charity themselves. They are a student section. So they bought the tickets over the summer. They got them mailed. They have physical tickets. The University of Iowa found out about all of this. I'm like, oh, that's not actually for charitable purposes. It's actually the students. We'll see about that. And they canceled their tickets. They said those 150 tickets are now null and void. You cannot come to the game. So the Orange Crush was the first group to publicize this. And they put out a message on their official Twitter account and said, oh, we're heartbroken by this. And it's used up so much of our budget. We did this charity work to raise money, and now we can't go. We'll have to go next year. Boo, Iowa. Why'd you do this to us? Woe is us. Iowa came back and said, these people posed as a charity, which they are not, to get cheaper tickets from us. So we canceled them because they did it under the guise of something that they're not. They have since donated some of the tickets to an actual Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club of Des Moines, I believe. Yeah.
This is a wild story, and this is a classic example, a modern classic example of bleep around and find out.
Yep.
Because the Orange Crush wanted to get in front of this. They jumped out, and they drew first blood here and said, no, they attacked us. We're just students. This is bad for the sport.
Mention their own charity work and the whole bit. I was like, no, you misrepresented yourselves.
And Iowa wrecked them. They bodied them. And I would have loved to have said, yeah, good for the Orange Crush. No.
Yeah, bad look.
Absolutely in the wrong here. Wild story. A couple different outlets have written about it if you want to go read some more, or just go check out Twitter and some old tweets from last night. Right now, though, we've got to get to a commercial, and after that, we'll talk to Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs, right here on 580 Sports Talk. We're back on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you, trying to get in touch with Mitch Holtish. Just having some minor technical difficulties, so we'll get Mitch here on the line in just a moment. Mitch joins us every Thursday during Chiefs football for our weekly conversation about all things Red Kingdom. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends at both Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. And again, we'll get to Mitch coming up here in just a moment once we can get the phone situation figured out. Talking about the Chiefs' third appearance in 4 years in the Super Bowl, third time in 5 years with Patrick Mahomes as a starter, and excited to get Mitch's perspective on just what that means for this particular franchise that went 50 years without a Super Bowl to now be there for the third time in 4 years. And just like that, we now have the voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holtis, on the line, brought to you by Hy-Vee and by Azura Credit Union. And Mitch, I was just saying that this team, this franchise, the Chiefs, went 50 years without a Super Bowl appearance. They have now been, or are going to have gone, 3 times in 4 years. I don't even know exactly how to put that into words, what kind of turnaround that is for this franchise during the Mahomes-Reed era.
And the fact that there's a successful team in the National Football League and 5 years of at least 12 wins, which is second all time in NFL history. To have 10 playoff wins, and in those 10 playoff wins, he's beaten 7 different AFC teams. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable, but it's awesome the Chiefs are in this game.
There's something a little poetic, too, for at least this 2022 season, right? About starting the year down in Glendale, taking on the Cardinals in regular season play, and now it'll end back there at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona again. There's something a little poetic, a little beautiful about that, I think.
Yeah, there is something symmetric about it, but it's also a narrative of the team that was supposed to be last in the AFC West. I mean, it's why I ended the Cincinnati, the victory over Cincinnati in the AFC Championship. Of you can doubt the Chiefs, you can dislike the Chiefs, you can disrespect the Chiefs, but you're going to have to deal with the Chiefs being AFC champions. That's a byproduct, really, of what the Chiefs team of 2022's now 23 playoffs has had in front of them since the spring. And yet they've fought off every challenge that's been put in front of them. They've been hyper-focused, and here they are. And they've done it in a very courageous, tough way. And so it was also poetic that they beat Cincinnati, a team that was full of hubris, really, and the Chiefs won the game having 9 guys either dealing with injury going into the week or during the game, and still winning that game in dramatic fashion.
Let's go to that Cincinnati game here. I know we've got so much looking forward to do to Super Bowl 57 between the Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, but we're a few days out from the game now, Mitch, the AFC Championship game against the Bengals. It was another classic, right down to the wire, competitive game between the two best teams in the AFC for the second year in a row, with a few days to reflect. And right about now, I'm sure it's kind of the turning point from, all right, all the focus on that game to all the focus is now on the Super Bowl. But what still is kind of the lasting image of that game? Is it a specific play, a specific performance? What is the lasting moment or image from that game, the AFC Championship, that really stands out to you?
The word never. Never underestimate Patrick Mahomes' toughness. We know he wins games. We know he's got phenomenal talent, but never underestimate Patrick Mahomes' toughness. Never underestimate the coaching acumen of Andy Reid and the comprehensive nature of his offense and the way he prepares a team for no matter the circumstance. To have those 9 players injured and you're down to 3 guys that are wide receivers, that's Sky Moore, Marcus Kemp, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Never discount a player too soon. Sky Moore, the GOAT, muff 3 punts, get him out of there. Comes up with the biggest punt return of the Andy Reid era in the Andy Reid Chiefs era. Never discount a player like a Harrison Butker, who fights his way to kick the biggest field goal of his Chiefs life. Never underestimate or undervalue what the Chiefs have done in 2022/23 in playing 8 rookies on defensive special teams, which tied an all-time National Football League record in the AFC or NFC Championship game with the 1988 Chicago Bears or the 2013 New England Patriots. And then, to quote Chris Jones, never, ever, never, ever, never, never disrespect Arrowhead Stadium. So there you go. There's a whole list of things that I'll remember centered around the word never.
Our guest is Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us Thursdays during the Chiefs season here on 580 Sports Talk, presented by our friends at Azura Credit Union and Hy-Vee. A lot of different guys in that answer, Mitch, that I'd love to ask you about, but I want to start with the man under center, Patrick Mahomes. It felt like just the football gods ratcheting up the difficulty level on him in that game. You're going to have to deal with a bum ankle. You're going to lose 3 of your wide receivers. Your tight end's got a bulky back. You're playing a team you've never beaten. And Mahomes not only persevered, not only survived, but he thrived. He threw for over 300. He hit his highest sprint speed of the game on the first down run that ended up being the final offensive play of the game for the Chiefs with a 15-yard penalty tacked on. I know your job is to use words to describe what it is that you're seeing, but what new superlatives are there for what Mahomes was able to produce in that game in those circumstances?
Well, I think we saw, and first of all, I love that he thanked God because I truthfully think that's where his feeling was and his thoughts were centered, because I think he did a lot of praying during the week, and a lot of folks who have God-given talent like Julie Freimeyer, who right now might be the premier female athletic trainer in professional sports, who's also a physical trainer, PT, was able to get him ready to play. But things that have nothing to do with his QBR or his touchdown to INT ratio is how I describe him in this game, in that his resilience, toughness raised it to another level in the moment when he's got to hit Marcus Kemp for a 13-yard pass play for a first down, or utilize Jody Fortson at wide receiver. That is being resourceful and resilient at a level that very few humans can do in any circumstance, and that any player can do in any professional league. I don't care if it's the NBA, NHL, or MLB. That's what I'm going to describe and remember from that Cincinnati performance. And when I said grabbing a bucket of guts, and the gutsiest, one of the gutsiest efforts I've ever seen, that the first arrow was pointing to Patrick Mahomes.
The rookie class of 2022 had their fingerprints all over this AFC Championship victory. From the Sky Moore punt return you mentioned, to Jalen Watson coming up with an interception, to Joshua Williams coming up with an interception on a ball deflected by Brian Cook, to George Karlaftis recording a sack. The players have said it themselves. There's a reason things become cliches, and it's because there's a lot of truth to them. And one such cliche is you're not a rookie when you get to this point in your rookie season, especially when you get deep in the playoffs into a Super Bowl run. But the maturation and the production of these first-year Chiefs players, I have to imagine it's gone beyond even the wildest expectations of some of the people at One Arrowhead.
No, I don't know about that. I tried to emanate to you guys during the training camp reports, even as early as that, because what I sensed being around these guys in the summer was an unusual emotional and mental maturity, more than probably any rookie class in my 29 seasons as the voice of the Chiefs. I said that you would hire every one of them. The only thing they were lacking, you guys, was the repetitions and circumstances that you cannot replicate in practice or camp that comes during the games. Or playing against Jamar Chase twice in your rookie year, or playing against Mike Williams twice in your rookie year, or playing against Travis Etienne twice in your rookie year. And all of those circumstances, though, were wrapped up in this emotional and mental maturity with better physical skills than at their draft level were given credit for, and that's what you have in these guys. The moment wasn't too big for them. Why? Because they're wired with a special emotional and mental maturity that is unusual, and that's this rookie class. The Chiefs played 10 rookies in this game. As I mentioned, the 8 on defense and special teams tied an all-time NFL record for championship game rookie participation. I expect nothing but forward from these guys, but their maturity level emotionally and mentally were like 3-year veterans or 5-year veterans, and that's what makes this group unique.
Chris Jones recorded his first playoff sack. He got that particular monkey off his back very early in Sunday's AFC Championship victory, and then picked up a second one for good measure. Only the most important defensive play of the game, arguably, for the Chiefs on what ended up being Cincinnati's last offensive play of the game. The season he's had, the playoffs now that he has had, are we seeing in Chris Jones a player maybe even leveling up to joining a tier of truly elite status, maybe in his era?
Answer yes. Big font and big type. Yes, 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 yes. And again, if people have followed this anthology of Chris Jones this season, our reports even in the offseason, I told you that he was phenomenal in camp. But Chris Jones did to the Bengals in that game Sunday night what Aaron Donald and Von Miller did to the Bengals in Super Bowl 56. Totally decimated them. And it wasn't just the 2 sacks. It's the 3 tackles for losses, 5 pressures. The Chiefs defended the run. The best run the Bengals had was the Burrow ad-lib largest run right at the middle, because nobody's in the middle. But Joe Mixon couldn't get going. Keep in mind, Samaje Perine had 150 all-purpose yards on December the 4th against the Chiefs. He wasn't a factor in this game. And a lot of that was due to Chris Jones and his teammates up front. But Chris Jones did everything in this game, not just get sacks. He did everything. He disrupted the run. He disrupted the physics of their offense. Chris Jones this year has been Aaron Donald. And you can look at the stats and look at them and compare them and realize even empirically that that's the case. And if you watch video, you realize the qualitative nature that that's the case. So it's not just quantitative, it's what Chris Jones has done in a qualitative standpoint.
Chatting with Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by our friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, do you think Super Bowl 57 is a matchup of the 2 best teams in the NFL?
I do. And they're mirror images, I think. Philadelphia is a really, really good team with no weaknesses. How have the Eagles done it? They have grown their players. Think how much Jalen Hurts has grown in a year from when we played him last year. Remember, we played him in Philadelphia. That's the game where Andy Reid got the 100th win with us, and he became the first coach in NFL history to have 100 wins with 2 franchises. Okay, now he's got 10 wins playoff-wise. He's got 11 with us, 10 with them. That's an all-time NFL record by Andy Reid. But they've had players that have grown in their system. Jalen Hurts comes to mind. They make the A.J. Brown trade, so they made some astute moves in the off-season and putting in free agents. They have 3 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line. The Chiefs have 3 Pro Bowlers on the offensive line. We talk about Chris Jones. The Eagles are dominant on their defensive front with Smoot, Javon Hargrave, and Fletcher Cox. Young players being integrated into their system. I mean, these 2 teams are both tough. Sorry, I know that doesn't sound sexy. They're both tough teams. They're tough mentally and they are tough physically. And so that leads you to, a Casey Jones train wreck or a train collision in Super Bowl 57. I expect it to be a spectacular game.
Mitch Holthus is the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He joins us every Thursday during the Chiefs season to talk all things Red Kingdom. And of course, his appearances are brought to you by our good friends at Hy-Vee and Azura Credit Union. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. As always, have a safe trip out to the desert, and we will talk to you coming up next week as we gear up for Super Bowl 57.
You want your nugget of the night?
Oh, let's do it.
The Chiefs are the only team in the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs 23 playoffs are the only team in National Football League history in a non-strike season. You have 11 different players score touchdowns and 8 different players score rushing touchdowns. I know you're up against a break. Can you think of all 8 players that had rushing touchdowns?
Mahomes,
Pacheco,
McKinnon, Kelsey, Edwards-Helaire.
Ronald Jones have one this year? Tony.
He did.
Rojo, Tony.
There is Tony.
Hardman.
Yep.
Is McCole Hardman the last one, Mitch?
McCole Hardman. I'm trying to think. Maybe Jones didn't have one because the trick question here is Noah Gray. Noah Gray had a rushing touchdown. He had a quarterback sneak against Tampa Bay.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
my
was
gosh.
thinking. I thought that was Kelsey for some reason, and maybe I'm
Noah
looking
Gray.
at
Go
the,
back and find it.
yeah, I'm looking at the totals right now. Yeah, Gray had one. Yeah, it's Gray, Hardman with 2, Tony with 1, Rojo with 1. It was Gray and not Kelsey. That was what he had wrong. Yeah, Mahomes, Edwards-Helaire, McKinnon, Pacheco. Those are the 8.
Absolutely the best. Mitch, we appreciate the nuggets. We appreciate the time.
Only other team was the 87 Dolphins, but that was a strike. Dead Scab scoring didn't count.
Doesn't
He's the only team in NFL history. Nope, Scab. Sorry. Okay. See ya.
See you, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch.
That is the best of the best. Mitch Holthus, the voice of the Chiefs. We have to get to a quick break. We'll wrap things up with the final word after this. Wrapping up 580 Sports Talk with the final word on this Thursday. Dan.
The more I talk about them and consider them, the more impressed I am with the Chiefs rookie class of 2022. It is potentially a franchise I don't want to say altering, but certainly a franchise bolstering class, the likes of which you're fortunate to get when you pick as late in the draft as the Chiefs have been doing in recent years. Certainly having 2 first-round picks helped this year, but Mitch Holthus has had it exactly right. He told us, he was correct to remind us that he told us about this all the way in training camp. These guys get it. They've got high football IQs. They had a desire to learn, and when their number was called throughout the season, all of them have done something to contribute to winning. And if they can do it one more time, the Chiefs are going to win the Lombardi.
Final word for me is do not believe Fulton. I guarantee you, swear on my life, he and I took a class together in college, and he just does not remember it. We sat next to each other for 2 weeks. I have no idea how he does not remember it. That does it for 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday afternoon. We appreciate you being a part of the afternoon with us. Coming up on tomorrow's show, final show of the week, we'll talk to Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. We'll preview K-State. We'll preview KU. We'll get you ready for some high school hoops as well. All that is coming up tomorrow from 3 to 6 right here on 580 Sports Talk. Don't forget to go check out the podcast version of the show on our website, 580WIBW.com. And you can always go check out the videos as well on our YouTube. Go subscribe if you have not yet. Sports on 580 WIBW is our channel. We're back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzynski. This is 580 Sports Talk.